You guys want to talk about haters? We are going to talk about haters. So stay tuned because Relatable Reese is joining me. Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome. This is Scientology Life After a Cult, and I am Natalie. If you've not been here before, I talk about Scientology and cults and culty Scientology stuff, share stories about people who've been in and left Scientology, share my own story. I was in this cult for 35 years and left with 3 generations of my family. But today, I'm very excited because Relatable Reese is going to be back on the show and joining us, and we are going to jump on the topic of haters. Now, if you have any questions, put question before it and put it in the comments, and the mods will keep an eye on it. Mods, thank you so much for being here. And though we are talking about hate, no hate will be allowed. So everybody on their best behavior. Let's get into this. First off, I want to bring up the fabulous Relatable Reese. Welcome.
Thanks for having me back on. I feel like, what was it, 3 weeks ago we chatted?
Yeah, just about 3 weeks.
Yeah, and I love your hair down.
Oh, thank you. I have just been like, I mean, it was constantly up because I couldn't deal. I just didn't have the bandwidth to even deal with my hair. And then now that I've been putting it down again, I've been like, girl, you need to go get that gray colored. And it's just getting a little too long, I feel like.
No, I love it. And it looks super healthy. You have like really glowy, shiny hair. But I get it. I don't ever wear my hair down because I don't know how often you wash your hair, but like I'm like maybe once a week. Like it's a whole task, hair
Yeah,
washing
it
a day.
is.
It's a lot. There's a lot. But no, I just want to tell you that.
I
It's good.
appreciate that.
I'm
Yeah,
into it.
I try to get in there about twice a week, but it's also because like I put almost nothing in it because I don't really do my hair, but I need to. I need to get back into it. That's something I'm kicking in next week is some self-care. Odin, no. That would be the giant schnauzer.
Okay, I get it.
Somebody
Gotta
dared
cover
to walk
myself.
by the house.
Well, it looks good, babe. You look good. You
I
look fresh.
appreciate it. Back at you. I like your hair down too. Odin,
Thank
no.
you.
Okay, let's see if we can get the wheels on the bus here, even with Mr. Odin just going off. I've got the curtains closed in my office here, so he can't see outside. And he's trying to open. I wish I could just turn the computer. He's trying if I can. Oh, wait, never mind. He stopped.
I get it. I have 2 dogs
Yeah.
and any kind of movement. Yeah, no. Although I'm thankful for that. Now that I live out in the middle of nowhere, Natalie, it is good to
Oh,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I've seen the photos that you've shared. One, it looks amazingly gorgeous.
It's incredible. But you could also get murdered and no one would know. So it's half and half. It's risky but fun.
There is that. And I think it's really interesting that we both find ourselves, I just lost my partner, you got a divorce, and we're both figuring it out. Like, okay, what is next? Who am I? And when you and I were chatting earlier about doing
Yeah.
another live stream together, it really dawned on me like how both well, you tell me if this is true for you. For me, for the first time in my adult life, I'm living just me. I've always either had a husband or a partner or my
Mhm.
children, where I had my kids in the house for a while. Years ago, it was just my kids and I for some years. And I realized, like, wow, this is actually the first time in my adult life that I'm fully, not making decisions. I go to the grocery store and all I'm thinking about is me. It's something so simple, but I've never done that. Like it hit me in the grocery store. And of course I cried.
I was gonna say I would have
But then
cried.
I realized like, okay, but it's just different. It's not bad. It's different. It's new.
Yes.
When it's like, oh, okay, things that I always got because I thought I know that Tony likes this. It's not my favorite, but I'll still get it. It's like, wow, I could get the one like, what do I want? And then I'm realizing I don't even know what I want. There's so many things that because it's what my kids preferred that I would have or get in the house. And I have some things I know that I like, but it's really weird. Have you found that I
Mhm.
mean, because for you too, you're out there, you have Huxley and Tommy comes and goes,
Yeah,
right? You're
but
kind of in a similar situation.
yeah, definitely. And I didn't think about that because I have Huxley, of course, still. I bet one day when he grows up and moves out, it'll be really weird. Because you're right, going to the store, I buy all the things
Yeah.
that I don't necessarily love, but that he loves. I didn't think about that. My mind went to is being alone is weird in general. And when my husband before passed away. I think I said this once, but it was such a weird new feeling when he was on hospice and they took his body. And
Mm,
then suddenly hospice was gone and everybody was gone. The people that came to say goodbye left. And I was like in my house, like, this is so weird. I didn't think of the next step of being alone, just
yeah.
totally alone. So yeah, no, I definitely know what you mean. I don't know as far as the kid part,
Mhm.
but just even Huxley and I just being here. I mean, it feels good. I have to say, it feels good to not be married to what I was married to anymore and finding my own way and yeah,
Yeah.
making my own decisions and even paying my own bills and things because he took care of all that.
Yeah.
It's freeing. It feels good, Natalie. I
Yeah.
mean, being out of Scientology already alone felt good to go, I don't have to think like this. I don't didn't pull this in just because I'm sick.
Mhm.
Then getting away and getting divorced and going, I don't also have to put up with this anymore. I'm just here and can make my own decisions, pay my own bills. I
Yeah.
mean, that's it's a freeing feeling, but you're right, it's very different.
Mhm. And it is very freeing in ways, and that's the thing that I try to focus on being having, I had like 30 years of parenting between my kids and Tony's kids, and that whole, we were doing the empty nest thing for a little while,
Yeah.
and but yeah, doing it solo, it's different. But Tony and I had many conversations about this that I'm very grateful for because he was pushing me then. He would say, "You've got 30, maybe even 40 more years to live. You have an entire lifetime to live after I'm gone, and you better live it." He's like, "You need to live it." And that's, I think, one of the biggest takeaways of my relationship is he lived. He engaged, he immersed himself in things and with people, things that he enjoyed doing, and he was just more spontaneous than I am. And Tony was the first, not the first, only the second man that I've had a serious relationship with who was not in Scientology.
Wow, that's big.
Yeah, there was only one other one who was not in Scientology.
Wow.
And I learned so much from both of those relationships, so much, and I think so much of it was because they were both never in Scientology. It was just such a different feel, such a
Oh,
different
yeah.
vibe.
It's a big difference.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big difference being in a relationship with a Scientologist versus not. Am I right?
Or even being a Scientologist in a relationship, you know? I mean, I
That's true.
remember even
That's
when, like,
true.
I had left Scientology and, like, all these things happened at one time, like, or within 2 years. I left Scientology, I got a divorce, my mom passed away. It was just a couple of, very interesting years and a lot of adjustment. And then when I met Tony, it was just so different because 'cause I'd never spent so much time with somebody, who had never been in Scientology. And it opened my eyes and I learned so much. And I feel that way about many of my relationships with people who've never been in Scientology. At the same time, it for me is so healing to talk to people in our community who are ex-Scientologists because there are certain things that we understand about each other because of the shared experience where
100%.
yeah, like, we can relate and, like, running into things outside of Scientology in the real world and going, "Okay, do I feel this way because of my Scientology background, or do I feel this way because this is who I am?"
I don't care what anybody says, no matter what, in my opinion, nobody will ever understand like you, like Aaron, like Sterling, anybody. Nobody's going to get it as much if I have to sit here and explain it. I mean, I can talk to my therapist all day, but I have to explain it to him.
Yeah,
I can say something to you and you immediately know what I'm talking about and how I feel and the position I was in. And there to me you can't put a price on that. There's not very many of us that can share with each other like that. And it's sometimes it's very needed.
yeah, it is because it can still be isolating in ways, just on certain things, and even, like, what we're talking about today when it comes to hate and haters and what Scientology considers to be hate. If you are a critic or you're critical of Scientology, you're a hater of Scientology and how they act in response to that. So the way that we were brought up within the confines of here's what the rules are, those are not rules that apply to the outside world. It looks, if you behave that way, it's very strange. And we're going to go over some of those and kind of really talk about this whole idea of hate and how, how do you navigate that? How,
Mhm.
and I think we'll start with talking about how we navigated it when we left Scientology. Because what happens when you leave Scientology is, especially in this modern day and age of social media, what happens is on social media, places like Facebook, there are Scientologists who have taken it upon themselves to let people know that, hey, Natalie is no longer in good standing with Scientology. You're going to want to unfriend her. And I know you went for the same thing. Can you talk a little bit about that experience?
About being unfriended or me
Yeah.
being asked to unfriend others? Because that's happened. It's gone both ways.
Yeah, both.
Um, yeah, well, more so with me. I mean, I lost the within, I'd say, 7 days of when Aaron accidentally, put my name up, I lost 500 people.
Mhm.
And those were people that I was born into it, so I'd known since I was very little. It was just unbelievable. Now, we know that being Scientologists, they hang that over your head all day long. You know the stakes if you're gonna get into those waters.
Yeah.
I just never thought it would happen to me. I never thought in a million years that I would be declared.
Even if you left?
Well, that's why I called the Aftermath Foundation. I mean, I wanted to figure out a way to do it and balance and keep my family. That was what I was terrified of. I called Aaron and said, "How can I do this? How can I leave and not get declared? How can I leave and keep my family, keep everything intact?" And the truth is, you can't.
No.
I mean, you could, I guess, if you did it very, very quietly and just slowly pulled away, do you think? But
Yeah.
there's no way we could do it the way we do it here. I mean, we went
No,
public.
and that's the thing is you give up when you decide to be vocal about Scientology. It's at the point where you've already been disconnected from what else do you have to lose in that way? But if you've not yet lost those things, being vocal about Scientology, it takes on a new kind of twist. And the decision has to be made, I think, for people because you can leave Scientology. And if you're not vocal about it and you're quiet about it, and then, there's a likelihood that they'll leave you alone, but you can never speak about it. For
Mhm.
me, that was not something that I could do. I just could not do that. And my intention was never, I didn't leave feeling I hate Scientology. I dislike the destructive practices. I
Mhm.
loved many of the people there and still
Yep.
do. It's the actions
Same.
I don't agree with. It's the practices I don't agree with. And I know there's many people there, my friends, because, having been in Scientology for 35 years, my whole world was Scientology and Scientologists, and those were my friends. And you lose all of that. And then you figure out how, how to actually be a friend outside of Scientology, which is so different. But the levels they go to make sure that you lose all of those connections and friends because now you're a critic is something that's truly next level. And you and I were
Truly.
talking about there's a policy letter or bulletin by L. Ron Hubbard where he talks about critics of Scientology. And I wanted to share some of that with our
Mhm.
viewers because we talk about this, but you don't often get to see it. So I
True.
am going to, let's see here.
And this is a big one in Scientology, kind of similar to like keeping Scientology working. Critics of Scientology is a huge policy letter, just for the audience to know that this is a big one for us to follow.
Yeah, it really is. So the kind of gist of it, so this is a bulletin written by L. Ron Hubbard in 1967 and talks about it originally came from An Ability, which is a magazine for Scientology. And listen to these examples, people. This is kind of like it's odd. If Aunt Ermeltrude, which for one, how do you're writing this and you come up with Ermeltrude?
Everybody has an Aunt Ermeltrude. Come on, Natalie.
I'm like,
I've got 2 that I can think of.
we're going to call her Irma for short. If Aunt Irma each night went through your change purse and extracted divers coins without your knowledge, and then if she found out you joined a group that could discover secrets, and by the way, Ellen Hubbard's talking about Scientology, her immediate and passionate reaction would be to damn you to the group as well. To damn the group and you as well. So
Mhm.
basically, L. Ron Hubbard sets the stage for Scientologists and says, hey, you're doing Scientology now and you're improving yourself. If anyone has a disagreement with anything you're doing, They are the criminal. They have the crimes,
Not you.
not you.
Yeah. But if you do something in Scientology, I remember Aaron talking about this once when I did a live with him. Like if somebody opened a door and accidentally hit David Miscavige with it, they would be pulled in and their crimes would have to be. So it's such a strange, even in Scientology, you're not safe. Even though he makes it seem that way, your crimes are getting pulled for everything you've ever done,
Yeah.
you know? So
And that
it's
you've not done, 'cause it's that they're the
got to.
expectation, yeah, that you've done something. Here's another example that L. Ron Hubbard gives, and this is again from critics of Scientology. So L. Ron Hubbard is saying, if you're a critic of Scientology, this is probably what's going on with you. If the wife, so say a dude's, he's at Scientology's org down there in Kansas City doing Scientology training and services. If the wife was stepping out with your best friend behind your back, and one day she found out you had thoughts of joining a group that taught you people's motives and reactions and made you understand them, she would throw a mad dog fit to prevent your progress. So, okay, so again, if somebody is critical about what you're doing in Scientology, it's because they're afraid that you're going to find out what they are up to.
Mhm.
And I really think this is complete and utter projection by Scientology. I think this is really L. Ron Hubbard's way of saying, this is what we're afraid of. We're afraid people are going to find out about us, what we're really doing.
That, and to me, it's just also dangerous. It's dangerous to think that way because we were trained to think that way. So, like, if somebody disagrees with us, Natalie, they have crimes.
Yeah.
You're full of crimes, and you should go write those up. Like, I mean, I remember it's so easy for me to kick back into that thinking. I remember thinking that way. Like, well, what did you do? I
Yeah.
remember thinking that. Like, you immediately project onto them if someone's like, that Scientology, you haven't read this, have you? And you're immediately like, well, you're an enemy. What did you do? Tell me
Yeah.
about your crimes.
Yep. Like
That's
Jenna Elfman.
dangerous.
Yep. We saw there was a clip. I should find it sometime. It hit the media where Jenna Elfman, there was somebody protesting Scientology, and she went at him and like started accusing him of being someone who essayed kids and all of these things. And that, by the way, is something that L. Ron Hubbard says to do. In fact, is that from this one? Let me take a little bit of a look here. It's crazy how, okay, so you say, let's see, because basically the positioning is that Scientology works no matter what. And if somebody is critical of Scientology, it's because they have crimes and they don't want to be found out. So let me pull this back up. I'm going to read this part here. So from this critics of Scientology, like this example, wife B howls at her husband for attending a Scientology group. We look her up and find she had a baby he didn't know about. Two things operate here. Criminals hate anything that helps anyone instinctively. And just as instinctively, a criminal fights anything that may disclose his past. So he's comparing dude doing Scientology. His wife disagrees. Oh, she had a baby you don't know about. Like they
Y-
must be doing something
It's
like
dangerous. It's a dangerous way of thinking. And it also teaches people. I don't know. It's just I hate to speak for other Scientologists, but for me and my group that I was in Kansas City, it teaches them to be very superior to
that.
non-Scientologists. I mean,
Mhm.
they're just there's no way around it. We are the what does LRH say? Like we're the least out of the mud. Everybody else is in the mud.
Yeah.
Like it teaches we're such a esoteric group and we know more than you. And it's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
I really use the word dangerous in a serious way. It's terrible. Yes, Brian Lucas. I put him on the screen for you. Brian Lucas loves Bo.
Love that. It very much too, when you think about it, when you're a Scientologist and you're in that position, like you read this, these are the kind of policies and things that we would read in Scientology because we had to be indoctrinated to believe if anybody, has an issue with what we're doing in Scientology, they have crimes. So think
Yeah.
about the position that puts you in if you're in a marriage or your family and you're a Scientologist, they are critical of Scientology and your default is, well, they must be committing crimes that they can be arrested for because that's what they have.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
Did you find yourself thinking like that?
No. I didn't. I did on my, when I was in the Sea Org, I definitely had more of a bit of a pompous attitude and wasn't really just a coldness towards people who weren't in Scientology. Like, we're the ones here doing
Yeah.
the work and getting it done. And, you're all just slackers. And it felt like that, like the Sea Org thought that about public people, or would see staff members as, well, you're not doing the most because you're just there during the day, or you're just there in the evenings. And then Sea
Mhm.
Org members and staff members would look at public Scientologist and be like, "Well, you're just not doing as much as we are." It's such a
Mhm.
ridiculous game of trying to trump who's doing more, people jumping over themselves to prove their loyalty to Scientology or L. Ron Hubbard.
Absolutely. Yeah. I found myself thinking more like that when I was on staff, but I was an ethics officer. So
Ooh.
it was very much like that. Like, I mean, pretty much just to me, I just walked around thinking like, well, you have crimes, go write up your overts and withholds.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
such a sick way to go back. I mean, it really bothers me to even think that I thought like that. Makes me
Yeah.
feel guilty. Makes me want to apologize to everybody I knew.
No, I totally get that. I feel the way about some things as well. Changing that mindset, getting out of that level of, because I think it falls into the category of, in Scientology, if somebody's critical of Scientology, it is okay to hate on that person. Scientology has the fair game policy where you can do, in fact, you know what? I just so happen to have a copy of that right here where we can look at it too. This is the actual policy letter
Wow.
from 65 of
Yikes.
fair game. I know you can tell it's an old copy,
That's
but
an oldie.
it is. But he's talking about how basically the chief stumbling block, huge above all others, is the upset we have with potential trouble sources and their relationship to suppressive persons or groups. So L. Ron Hubbard is saying, well, the biggest problem we have for Scientologists is the people that they're connected to that are critical of Scientology. So the solution isn't, hey, why are so many people critical of Scientology?
Couldn't
Why?
be us. Yeah.
No,
We
neither
haven't done
is
anything.
us.
It's
Yeah.
you.
It's just it make there's no ability to look within, and I know there's a
No.
better word for that. Somebody throw it in the chat if you think of it. Or if you're on the replay, go ahead and put it in the comments. Where you lose you lose that humanity. You lose that human part, that compassion of, like, for example, if you're a staff member in an org, and if your job, like I was in Division 6, which included getting new people into Scientology, which I sucked at, but in the course room, it's so strict. You need to be there for roll call. If you're not there for roll call, you're late and you can get sent to ethics for that. And
Mhm.
no excuse is accepted. So if somebody was like, oh, you know what? I got into a car accident on the way here, or my mother called and there was a death in the family. And so I needed to be there for her and do that. But I still then came in. That is unacceptable because you just should have been there. It's always what Scientology wants first. Did you ever experience that where it was like, and contrast that to leaving Scientology, being out of Scientology, and then being like, oh, okay, you can't make it to lunch because you had something come up. That's fine. No problem. It's not a big deal. Or it's, oh, I hope everything is okay. Versus in Scientology, you're out ethics. You need to get in here just no matter what. No matter what. That whole thing always freaked me out.
You just made me really realize something.
What's that?
So, just something you just said. It's like you said about you were in a car accident. Like, guys, I don't for me, again, I'm gonna speak for me. Everything was a big deal for me, and it still is that way in my life. Everything has serious consequences. Like, you know how you meet people and they're just so chill and they're like, "It's okay. You're it's okay."
Yeah.
That is not a mindset in Scientology. So, everything's a big deal. If you came in and said, "I got, a fender bender, I'm late for that," you'd immediately be sent to ethics. You would have to go do some sort of a handling on that because that would be a PTS situation.
Mhm.
Any accident or illness stems from a PTS situation. So that would be an accident. You'd have to go do a PTS handling, right? If you anything, it made me think about like I remember once, more than once, hundreds of times, saying I can't come to an event. There
Mhm.
is no, oh, okay, no big deal. It's your sister's wedding, okay. Like you're always questioned. Why not? Why can't you make it? How come you can't bring a friend? Natalie, I am so like hyper about like I'm like, is that okay? Like I feel like that's why I have trouble saying no. That's why I worry about like, is that person upset with me now? I like I feel like there is no, it's okay, you're all right. Go ahead and go to roll call. You're a few minutes late. No big deal. That would never happen in Scientology. Everything's a big deal. You are held accountable for every single thing. And so I kind of live my life that way still. I'm like, I'm going to be, like I think about if I'm going to be late to something, I panic. I get really freaked out. I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know if I communicated that well, but
No, I
I
totally get
still
it.
feel like there's some residual effects from that. Like, I'm like, "You're not mad at me." Like, I feel like everything has consequences, so you're gonna get in trouble. Like, even growing up, I remember being 6 years old, my dad being like, "Go write up your overts and withholds. I can tell that you're hiding something." So it's like constant, like, ugh, I just feel afraid. I feel fearful of things.
And we're never good
Kind
enough.
of goes away.
You're never good enough. You're always striving to fit this, this ideal of a Scientologist, of what L. Ron Hubbard says it means to be a Scientologist, of what Tom Cruise says it means to be a
Mhm.
Scientologist. And not everybody is like that. And that's where I think they run into a lot of trouble. And then when you leave Scientology, especially if you grew up in Scientology, now you got to learn like, okay, so what is the right way? And sometimes it's not so black and white. It's not so clear cut. I'm curious what you think about this. Growing up in Scientology, I know it really put me in a mindset. And this is something that I really work to overcome today, of that there are these absolutes, that things can be black and white, that they are black and white, and they're not. And that's where I think, to your point, Risa, what you were just saying, being able to like go with the flow and be okay with like whatever, that is such a gift. In Hawaii, there's a concept we say, if can. If no can, no can, which means if you can make it and you can do this, that's awesome. If you can't,
Hmm.
truly, no worries. Don't worry about it. I'm not going to have any issue about it. It's cool. And so we use that in my family all the time, where I'll ask one of my siblings or something for something. And if it really is something that I'm like, hey, if you can't do it, no problem. I just say, oh, if can. And it's like you communicate that
Hmm.
concept. And I feel that when you give people that out, when you make it okay, because I know I like when this is done for me. And, if we're supposed to see the change, be the change we want to see in the world, right? I think Gandhi said that that's what we have to do for each other. So since leaving Scientology, have really tried to like let my friends know, if you can't make something, just say. You don't even have to give me an excuse. You don't owe me an excuse. Just let me know so I have a heads up and I don't head that way. Because there's such freedom, because I've been in situations in my life where I needed to do that. I needed to cancel something last minute because I had something either going on, or just I was in a headspace where I didn't want to leave the house, and that's what I needed. And I think that's part of what being a friend is, and is doing the opposite of hate, is to make it okay to give that person this safe space to be however they need to be.
Yes. You know what makes me think of if can? It makes me think of the Scientology way of saying that. I don't know if you said this a lot, but like in my realm, we would say, like, if it's not a big deal, you'd go, "Well, I don't have a must-have on it."
Yes.
It just made me think of that. I would say it all the time. I'd be like, "Well, I don't have a must-have." And guys, again, that's Scientology talk. That's total, no
Yeah.
one in the real world talks like that. But in Scientology, if you're like, "I can't make it," or "I don't know if I'll be there," the person may go, "Well, I don't have a must-have," meaning like you don't have to do it. It's such a weird, they develop such weird lingo, but um it just makes me think about boundaries even, and like how I don't have any still. Like, again, I feel like I have a hard time going, "Hey, this is a hard line for me and I'm not comfortable with it." I'm getting much better at it now, especially
Mhm.
having a YouTube channel,
Yeah.
because a lot of people ask a lot of different things, and, "Can you do this?" and, "Can you come here?" and a lot of people, I don't know about you, but a lot of people wanna talk to me on the phone, and I did that a little bit, but now I'm
Mhm.
kinda like, "Look, I can't. I just can't. I can't spend 2 hours on the phone with you, and I'm not comfortable giving out my phone number, to be honest."
Mhm.
So I'm
Yeah.
getting better at that, but I don't know about you, like, I still have a hard time because there are no boundaries. Everybody knows everything about you. There's a flashlight on your whole life all the time.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you have some marital issue, the trust and believe the entire church knows about it. Like, the
Oh, yeah.
chaplain's gonna talk to you, it's gonna come up in session and ethics interviews. So it's like I have a hard time, I think, with boundaries because I don't care what people know. Everybody knew everything my whole life. And
Yeah.
now it's more it's a weird switch over to come into the real world and be like, "Can I say no? Okay, no." You
Yeah.
know, you couldn't
Yeah.
do that before. You couldn't
No.
say I think about this a lot. You couldn't be in session holding the cans and go, "I'm not comfortable answering that.
Yeah.
I don't think I want you to know." "Okay, good. I'll repeat the auditing command."
Yeah, exactly.
You're
You're
not
shamed
leaving
to
this
do it.
room until you do, and it could be hours. So,
Mhm, and then if you're
you know?
not going along with that and you're not sharing whatever it is they wanna know, that's when, like, then the threats start, where then you're gonna go to ethics, and
Yep.
it's just this, like, antagonistic,
More and more
hateful kind
threats.
of
Yep.
yeah, threatening way to handle people, and I think what you were saying, when you leave Scientology and realize that as we've all learned more about, mental health and therapy and all these things and different tools, you realize, like, "Whoa, so not only are boundaries okay, they're necessary to have healthy relationships. If you can
Yes.
have healthy boundaries, you can have healthy relationships. And I think, well, I will speak for me. Here I go now, speaking for all Scientologists. In fact, you know
It's
what?
easy to
Screw it.
do though, because we were
Screw it.
all there.
I'm speaking for all Scientologists.
Do
So,
it,
or
do it.
all ex-Scientologists. You you have to figure out what your boundaries are because you're not used to that. It's everybody knows everything. I'm supposed to be able to communicate about anything to anyone except Scientology to other people. Because the first rule of Scientology is don't discuss Scientology, as I like
Right.
to say. But when you leave, you now have to figure out these boundaries. So, like with my mailman, I might have certain boundaries, but with my sister, they're of course very different, and
Yeah.
getting to the place where I could recognize that, one, it is okay to have different boundaries with different people. And secondly, if somebody is upset about those boundaries and they don't like that boundary, that's okay. But you can still hold to it. I think there's strength in being able to do it without animosity. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes.
I feel that maybe because we lived in such a high control group, in such under so much control, that for me, now that I'm out and I've had some years of healing under my belt, I mean, girl, you just left, like, what, year and a half? We're not even 2
Year and
years
a half.
out. I'm
Year and a half.
14 years out. So I've had a lot more time and to process a lot of it and to discover new tools and recognize that, wow, we it is okay to have different boundaries with different people. And if they don't like that boundary that you have, then that's not your people. We don't even There's no need. This is another thing I learned since leaving Scientology. I don't owe anyone an explanation really for anything. That I
That's a tough
don't.
one for me because you have to give one in Scientology to
Yeah.
anyone that asks, or the ethics gradients increase,
Mhm.
right?
Whereas what I'm learning, it's like in the real, like when we talk about healthy tools for handling hate in Scientology, it was only directed at us, right? Or if anybody felt hate towards Scientology, it was, well, interrogation, security checks. If you say things that are non-optimum, where they think like, oh, you're starting to move away from the pack, you get
Mhm.
security checked and interrogated to
Yep.
find out what your crimes are. Whereas outside of Scientology in the real world, if you have a disagreement with somebody, it's like, fine, right? You can agree to disagree or you can move on from a relationship that's not healthy. But what I'm recognizing in life outside of Scientology is that we get into that trouble when we don't recognize what a healthy boundary would have been in the first place. Like if I tell my male person, I was going to say mailman, but it's a woman, my male woman, my male person, everything I tell my sister, she might be a little put off about it. And I would feel that like I needed to explain too. I would get things even like in the mail and feel like I need to explain this. And it's like, no, I don't.
That is how I feel still because you make such a good point. I mean, in Scientology, you have to explain away everything. If
Mhm.
somebody wants to know something, I mean, I got stopped in the hall all the time leaving course. Like, why are you leaving? We need your help with the OT committees. Blah 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 blah. Like, you can't get out of there. And if you have any kind of an excuse, if it's somebody's wedding or a funeral or anything, it's like, well, that's not what's important on clearing the planet. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
there's no good reason to not be there. So And just being, like I said, under a microscope is constantly how my life was. So I guess I just have no problem giving up information, and boundaries need to be set. And I'm still learning that, and it's tough for me to have to explain myself and like give a no. I feel like I have to say yes to everything still.
Huh, that is interesting, and I'm trying to remember if I ever really felt that way. I think I did for a while, and the turning point for me, honestly, it's really come in the last few years that I've really felt more like, "Okay, I think I got this whole life kinda thing a little bit better. I've got some tools, and I can see how the solutions that I used when I was in Scientology don't work for life today. They didn't work then. And when you're trying to solve a problem with the solutions from 50 years ago and trying to apply it to today, it
Yes.
just doesn't necessarily work. And that's part of the problem that Scientology runs into because they won't change anything except for what David Miscavige decides that he's going to change.
That's right. That's right.
Otherwise, you're stuck with
It's
it. So if you
so
criticize it,
outdated.
yeah, exactly. There's no change. There's no change. They just try to pretend there is, like, they're not homophobic, which they totally are. Like,
They totally are. They no question. I
yeah.
grew up in that. No question. And it's written in Science of Survival, among other places. But um, yeah, that's makes me feel sad in a lot of ways. Just things that I need to catch up on. I get embarrassed a lot being in the outside world now and feeling like I'm so behind on some things. And there's so many things I don't know. I get really embarrassed about. There's words I don't know and just concepts. And
Mhm.
we didn't learn anything about, even, I mean, I don't need to go down this rabbit hole, but like I know nothing about like geography or world history. I've said this 100 times. I thought the Holocaust was like 400 years ago. I had no
Mm,
idea it wasn't that, like, I just have no concept of like,
yeah.
you know, World War 1 and 2. I couldn't tell you when that was. I don't know anything about it. There's just so many things that like useless information I know, but I don't know anything about coming out and chatting with everybody. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Tommy talks to me all the time and I'll go, I don't know what that means. I don't know what that word means, or I don't understand the concept. I don't know what that means. And luckily he's really nice about it. And he's like, it's so good that you do that, because there's a lot of people who nod and pretend to know what you're talking about, but they don't
Yes,
stop you.
exactly, exactly.
I don't do, yeah. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think that if you have someone, like as we're learning, for one, everybody is learning. Everybody doesn't have the solutions and know everything about everything because that's what we have the internet for and ChatGPT. But you can learn these things. But having a willingness to learn and the ability to recognize that we don't know it all and that we're still learning, I feel like you can't teach that. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Anyone can learn about history and learn these things. Most people will be able to study it, understand it, and have some understanding of it. But when you have an inability to admit you don't know these things and an unwillingness to try and learn it, that's where you'll have problems. You're sitting there
Yes.
wanting to learn. You're curious. You're asking. And I try to do the same thing. I miss a lot of like 80s references sometimes because,
Yeah.
that was like my key C word time and
Yeah.
days. So I think that's something definitely I would encourage you to change what you think about that because you're curious. You have curiosity. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of people, there are some who went through what we went through and just shut themselves down and limit their and still believe those what do you call them, like beliefs, self-limiting beliefs about themselves because that's what they were told in Scientology. And for people never in Scientology, sometimes it was their parents or another family member or a relationship where they just drilled into you like you're stupid or you don't know this or you don't know things.
Hmm.
And that is something that, we have to just kind of step out of and go, hey, and the fact that you got out of Scientology and the experiences that you had, it's like that you're still here willing to talk about it is, I think that deserves props. It's like it's not easy to always do that and open yourself up that way and be so vulnerable about that. Hey, I'm embarrassed that I don't know these things. But I guess I want to tell you that a lot of us don't know things. I didn't understand how the moon worked. I mean, I had a whole idea about it that wasn't exactly true, like all these things.
Oh,
And
I
I
have
think,
no idea how it works.
but see, here's what you got to do. Here's what I do now. I got that Chat GPT app on my phone. And anything I'm not sure about, I just ask it. Or you can take an entire document. Here's a great example. Every step of the way with Tony's treatment, every time I would get tests in his My Chart or in Oncology's patient portal, I needed to understand them. And it would take a while
Mhm.
before I could hear from the doctor. I put all of them in the chat GPT. Now, it's not necessarily always 100% correct, but I never had it be incorrect. Then I could kind of understand it more. So when had the time, when the doctor had the time for me, I already knew what questions. I would even ask ChatGPT,
Mm.
what are some of the questions I should be asking about this? So you get 15 minutes, 30 minutes maybe with these doctors. They don't have all the
Mhm.
time to explain it.
Yeah.
So again, there's nothing wrong because I didn't know those things, but I now have a resource to learn those things. And I think it's the same for you and anyone who feels like that is there's nothing wrong with not knowing. If you're curious and you have a willingness to know, you've already won the battle because we can learn these things. It's not a big deal, but not
Yeah.
everybody can admit that. And then they limit their learning to it.
Yeah. Yeah, and you make such a good point, but I also think don't you think that stems from Scientology? Like, you learn to say you don't understand things. I mean, I've always been that way. I don't know what that means. I don't understand the concept. I don't know. So you go do it in clay or make demos of it. Or, I mean, it's kind of a natural thing in Scientology to go, I don't know what this means. And then you go sit down and word clear for 4 hours about it. But I've never been, I'm embarrassed now coming out into the real world. I've never felt embarrassed in Scientology because I was with my people. But coming out into the real world and like, um, I thought Philadelphia was a state. Like, I just get embarrassed because I just don't know what everybody else knows because they went to school for it, just
Yeah.
basic school. I'm not even talking about college, but, I do have to say, like, I've learned so much. Tommy is a really good teacher. He's spending all that time in prison. He's read a lot of books and he talks to me. He talks to me a lot and I'll go, whoa, whoa, whoa. I don't know what that word means. And like, he taught me the word stoic. I didn't know what it meant. And so I do common word clearing with him. He'll say what it means, and then I give it to him in my own words. You do that in Scientology. What does that mean in your own words? And I'll say that, and he'll go, yeah, kind of. It's more like this. And then I'll go, oh, so like this. And I give examples. And so I learned the word stoic, and then I learned the word euphemism with him the other day. I didn't know what it meant.
Euphemism?
Yeah. I
Wow.
didn't know what that word meant. So like we went over it, and I gave examples, and he was like, you got it. That's it. That's all it is. So
Yeah.
now, like, that was like 3 days ago. And since I've talked to him on the phone, he's like, that's a euphemism for, and it's kind of cute. I'm like, okay, now I know what that means. I actually feel better about it. But, um, that's a basic word. I've heard that word many times. I never knew what it
Mhm.
meant. Euphemism.
Yeah.
But, same with stoic. I had no idea what that word meant. So it's just basic stuff like that. It's embarrassing to me that the rest of the human race knows what that is. It's not like medical terms.
Yeah,
Most
well,
people know
not
what that
all of them. I
means.
mean, there's a lot of things I think that, if you look at for me, it all comes down to, I think somebody who has a curious mind, a willingness to learn, to be open-minded about it, which is something you can't do in Scientology, and to have an open heart about it that's how we all learn. And being able to do it in a situation where you're not being judged for it creates a safe space for
Yes.
you to learn, which it sounds like what
Yes.
you have with Tommy.
Yeah.
And I think that is the key to have those people in our lives who are just open to that and who support us in that and like my Tony was super excited about like showing me things and sharing things with me that I didn't experience. He was big on the first time of doing something.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, so it was all about, "Oh, this is the first time we've ever done this together," or, "This is the first time that I've ever done this." And we try to do just as many things we could that we recognized as these were firsts for us, or for me mostly.
Yeah. Yeah, but it is cool, right? Like, it is cool to have a first. There's a lot of firsts I'm sure that you experienced coming out of Scientology. For me, there's still, like, tons of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, "I've never done this before. I've never seen
Yeah.
one before." I remember like, a month or 2 ago, I had my first snow cone, and I was just like, other people do this. It's so cool." Like, I just never and it was delicious. Um, but yeah, just I get that. That's adorable. I bet he really enjoyed that.
Yeah, he did. He was big on first. So many things I appreciated that, but it opened my eyes too to, wow, like just because you've never done something before or I've never learned something before, finally being able to do it is kind of exciting. And it really changed my thinking with that to go from, because I was in a similar situation. I dropped out of high school at 15 to work for Scientology. I went into the Sea organization. I got married for the first time at 17. And then I had my daughter at 19. And then I had, a couple of years later, I had another one, got a divorce, was a single mom for a while, got married again, had another child. It's just been, and all of that within the confines of Scientology in that world. And I think
It's so
about
different.
sometimes, yeah, like how we live our lives now, the freedom that we have now, how different would that have been? And I'm still learning to just like, okay. And this is the interesting thing to me is that so many people who watch our content never in Scientology, but experience the same thing. You know what I'm saying? Like even what you're saying about not knowing certain things. Think about people who come from other countries and they're learning, or when you go to visit another place.
Yes.
So maybe if you thought about it like, you just because often I feel this way and you might be able to relate. I've often felt like I just arrived on the planet.
Yes.
Like,
Oh, I totally feel like I'm not from here. I'm like,
yeah.
I'm learning a language. I
Mm,
often feel like, Natalie, like I just got dropped in the middle of a New York City subway, like, and everybody knows what they're doing and where they're going, and they all are like moving at a fast pace. And I'm like, I don't know directions. I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know how to speak your language.
mhm.
It's
Yeah,
really how it feels. That sounds dramatic, but it's very much like I'm just now arrived to Earth.
yeah. I
It's
think
a
the
weird
difference
feeling.
it really is. And I think holding on to that curiosity and not letting, because the difference in Scientology, when we were curious about things outside of Scientology, we were not allowed to pursue that or to learn about it. And if we did, then we were considered like, well, why are you not looking to L. Ron Hubbard? Then you're seen as
Mhm,
being critical or not being a dedicated Scientologist. Outside of Scientology, having the ability to make our own decisions about things, like you were saying, it can be kind of hard because we were coming out of what's the equivalent of an abusive relationship where you get beat up and you get kicked around. I mean, not talking physically for some, yes, it's just such mental gymnastics to keep being a
mhm.
Scientologist in good standing. So then when you come out of it, I think if we can maintain that curiosity about things and recognize that even when, because there's all this hate when you leave Scientology, you get cut off, you get disconnected from on social media,
Mhm.
you get disconnected from in real life. You're told, you just lost any chance you have of immortality and all that. And I guess it's not that different from in Christianity if somebody is a bit of a zealot and it's like, well, you're never going to go to heaven unless you do this. You're never going to get, that control piece.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
That's what I see. That's why I think so many people relate to our content because at the end of the day, we're talking about a need and a desire to be accepted for who we are, even if who we are is someone who doesn't know these things, who might not know those things. But I bet there's a lot of things that you do know that somebody else not might. Like one of the things I admire about you is like your passion for clothes and putting yourself together. And it's been such a long time, I feel like, since, I put thought into that because it's just been a whirlwind the last few years for me
Oh,
while Tony
yeah.
was sick. And I don't have an eye for that. He did. He worked in men's fashion before he grew up with a
He
father.
did?
Yeah, his dad owned a store for years that sold high-end men's clothing,
Oh,
fabrics
that's so
from
cool.
yeah, fabrics from Italy. So Tony worked in that for a while and he styled people. And so he would always help
Oh,
like
that's cool.
with my outfits. He'd be like, okay, no, or this would be a yes. And even with his coaching and help, I never really like fully got to where I was comfortable going, yes, that is the one. I had to have a rule at one point that I never shopped alone because I was so bad at picking
Did he
out.
shop with you?
Oh yeah, I wouldn't shop without him.
Oh, that's so cool. I love it when a guy is into that.
Yeah.
In general, I just love guys that, like, pay attention to their outfits and fashion, and then they help with their partners. I think that's so cool.
Mhm.
I didn't know any of that. That's
Oh yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
I bet he had
He
cool clothes then.
the most amazing clothes and so many of them. That's why he banned me like a decade ago from doing laundry because the clothes I had were if it wasn't wash and wear, I didn't want it. And I messed up a couple of his sweaters and he was like, "Yeah, no, you're
Oh,
not
yeah,
doing
not
that
gonna happen
anymore."
again.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my god, that's awesome. I wish I could have sat and chatted with him about fashion. I love talking about that stuff. That's so cool. I love it when I see a guy who's
Mhm.
put together an outfit and like put thought into it. I just think that's really cool. And I notice them right away when I'm out in public. I do the double take. I'm like, who put that together for you?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, no,
That's so cool.
yeah, he really had that, and it's something that I got comfortable with, like, okay, this is not really in my wheelhouse because no matter how many times he goes over it with me and talks to me about fashion and putting things together and how there was always this thing about like you can have two pieces and they're like oil and water. They're not going to blend. But if you add this piece in, it's
Yes.
the egg that then makes it all
Uh-huh.
mixed together. And I'd be
Yeah. And
like,
accessorize
I
and
don't know
yeah.
what you're saying.
Throw a hat with it. Yeah.
I'm hungry now.
Yeah, now I just want some egg drop soup. No, that's awesome, and he's right, by the way. Like I always tell people that on my channel, I'm like, you can take a boring outfit, but don't. I do that in my own closet. I'm like, I hate this, and I think, hold on, put some makeup on, style your hair, and then do some accessories. Throw a hat, or like do a cute little espadrille, or do this. Like I think that's really fun, and I think it's something I have a passion for. But I also don't shame other people for not doing it. You know, I just think
Yeah,
it's an art form. It's just
yeah,
fun.
it is,
Fun to,
and
like,
even, like
pick different glasses and
yeah, and you do it well, and inspires me.
well,
I'm
thank
like, "I
you.
gotta try something new."
Thank you. I just love that Tony, I just love that he just, again, had that art form. I think
Yeah.
that's so just really cool.
Yeah,
It's
he styled
amazing.
people for magazine covers. I mean, he worked with a lot of his store was a men's clothing store. Athletes, a lot of CEOs, a lot of
No
just in for
way.
the Derby, to go to Kentucky. Yeah, it was a high-end men's store. Everything was custom made, so he would go to shows. He would, look at a sample and be like, "Okay, I will take this in, make it in this color." And he would even get involved in the process and go, "Can we move the pocket? My people, my clients, my customers in Minnesota are doing this." And then they'd be able to do it. He'd be able to work with all these different designers and make alterations to have it fit the clients that he had in Minnesota, which are gonna be different from the ones on the East
Right.
Coast or the West Coast.
That is I could have spent every day of my life with him. Like, I would just eat that up. I think that is so cool. I could listen to it all day long. I think I was gonna ask, where is he from? Where was he from?
He's from Minneapolis. He was born here in Minnesota. His dad was from Detroit, and, but I think his dad born here? I think he was. His family's from Greece,
Oh,
so
that's
he's
cool.
half Greek or
That's
Macedonian,
cool.
which he likes to
That's
point out. Yeah.
Did you guys go to Greece?
No, well, I did, but not with him. I actually
Okay,
within the first year or so of our relationship, I went on a cruise, and it was around the Greek islands and stuff, and,
that's
um
cool.
yeah, and I really
I've
enjoyed it
always
'cause
wanted to go to Greece, that's why I asked.
it is amazing, and I gotta say, because like, Tony, I remember thinking when I went to Greece, I was like, "Oh, there are Tonys running around all over." I mean, the men are just
There's
handsome.
Tonys everywhere, I
There's
can't tell.
Tonys everywhere. The darker skin, the dark hair, but the green eyes like Tony had,
Oh,
and I'd be on the phone with him going, "Oh, my cab driver was handsome like you." I mean, it was just this
oh
and
my god.
the women seemed it like in 2 corners. Either there was a traditional older Greek woman that was, on the shorter, larger size, and then there were all these Greek women that just looked like these goddesses effortlessly walking around and doing their thing. It was
So
just
cool.
this confidence that I feel like both, men and women really held in that culture. That's something that I saw, and just an openness and being really friendly. I think a lot of it comes from, the whole island life kind of thing.
I'm sure.
They're just more chill. But yeah, you
I
would
wanna go to, Italy for that reason too. Like, I think p the style of people, France, like, it's just I admire it so much. Again, I don't shame people who don't, but, like, people like Tony, God, I will literally walk up to any stranger and be like, "Shh, tell me about this. Like, how what were we, I love this. I love the head to toe. Where did we get the hat? Like, how do I know where these shoes came from?"
yeah.
And, like, pairing it with that bag. I just really love people who put stuff together. I admire it so much. It's such a form of art to me.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
anyway, I just think that's cool. That's amazing. I love that about Tony.
Yeah, I'll have to
You'll
show
have
you
to
some
maybe you
photos.
can, like I was gonna say, you could show me some pictures sometimes.
Yeah.
I would love that.
Oh,
I have a
definitely.
question.
Yeah.
and it's going back to what we were talking about. We
Yeah.
kind of haven't even addressed the hate thing, but
Yeah.
I love what we're talking about. We should just keep doing streams sometime about Scientology because this is
Yeah.
very it's fun to do this on my channel, Natalie, but it's way more fun to do it with someone who
Mhm.
knew Scientology.
Yeah.
It's just we can bounce off of each other, and I don't mind talking about it, but sometimes it gets boring for me to talk about it solo. And
Yeah.
so to talk about it with someone like you who really understands. I was thinking about you said you had your first child at 19.
Yeah.
Is that right? How different would our lives have been if we weren't Scientologists? Like, I was going to ask you, did you do your pregnancy assists?
No, I was a Sea Org member. So my pregnancy was not a pleasant experience because I was in the Sea Org at a time where you weren't allowed to have children in the Sea Org. And there was a lot of pressure put on me to end my pregnancy early on. And I fought them on that and I refused. And so, of course, we got into trouble for that and had to hide my pregnancy for a long time. I wasn't allowed to let people know that I was pregnant and I wasn't allowed to show it. So there were no proud belly moments. It was all about covering it up, getting a bigger jacket. I would have my skirt undone all the time under the jacket to try and fit it. And I got pretty far before you could like really tell. And I, then had to go hide away until I had the baby, which was about 2 weeks in my room.
Unbelievable. Wow. That's horrible. I'm
Yeah,
really
but it would be
sorry.
totally
And
different. You're right.
it would be totally different. And I
Yeah.
mean, I go back before pregnancy. Like, it would have been cool to go to high school. I think, what would a prom have been like? Like,
Oh, I know.
what? Yeah, I think about, like, what really would have been cool? To have parents that wanted me. That would have been neat. What would it be like to have a dad? That would have been cool to, have a dad that, like, was interested in me. But no, really, I just wonder about those things. Like, my pregnancy, I had to do the full on pregnancy assist before and then after the delivery, and the silent pregnancy
Oh
and
god, yeah.
the delivery, and auditing out the engram and all that. And I just think, gosh, we didn't really even get to, there's so many things
Enjoy
that
it.
I've never thought about till this is what I mean. I like talking to former Scientologists because it's like, especially a female, like talking to a woman, it makes a big difference because there's so many things that I just wonder, how would that have been different? My pregnancy would have been so different. I just like, I mean, you can't even have intercourse when you're pregnant because
Yeah.
Scientology is highly against that. So, like, there's just so many things that it's very, don't touch that, don't do that, look but don't touch. Like, there's
Yeah.
so many rules, and it's just like, wow, what would it have been like without all those rules?
Mhm.
Somebody asked what a pregnancy assist
Yeah,
is.
I
I
was
mean,
gonna say,
it's
can you touch on that?
yeah, I mean, you may do a better job at it. It's out of Dianetics, and it's something that when it's a long auditing action, and it's something that you go through while you're pregnant and then after the pregnancy. But it's auditing out just the previous pregnancies on your whole track, so past lives, things like that.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'd never done a pregnancy assist.
Yeah, it's very strange. And the part of the pregnancy assist is also while you're delivering the baby, you're completely silent, and there's all these rules. And uh, after you have the baby, you audit out the actual delivery. And so there's just a lot to it. There's a lot of assists you do, like touch assists after you deliver, and there was just a lot to it that made no sense to me. Just
Yeah.
I remember it just being really drawn out and bizarre.
Yeah.
But yeah,
There's,
and it's weird to talk to a doctor. Like, I loved my OBGYN, and like having to tell her when you get to the end, like, I can't remember how many weeks along, but like once you start going, remember, you go every week.
yeah,
Like,
the
yeah,
last
like I
month or
remember
so.
having, yeah, I remember like having to be awkward with her and being like, "Now I need you to be quiet. Don't forget. I need you to be quiet." You know, so it's like it's just awkward. I don't know. It's the
Yeah,
whole thing
no.
going back is so. I don't like this word that much, but like cringy. It's very awkward to be like, "You don't mind being quiet? Let me tell you how to do your job.
Yeah.
You went to medical school. Let me tell you what I need you to do here." You
These are
know?
my religious beliefs.
Yeah, yeah.
There were a couple comments about the not having sex during pregnancy. Some people had never heard that before, and the biggest reason for not having sex when you're pregnant, per Scientology and L. Ron Hubbard, is it creates engram, so a recorded moment of pain and unconsciousness for the baby.
Coitus.
Yes, that coitus hurt the baby. Coitus.
Um,
There's a word I haven't heard in a long time, but L. Ron Hubbard, I swear he loved that word. Coitus.
he did. And not only not I don't want to overstep on your channel, but not only could you not have intercourse, there was no allowing of the whole purpose was not just the action. It was you cannot have an orgasm.
Yes, because of the squeezing of the baby.
Yes, because the uterus contracts. So like you
Yes.
couldn't even take care of yourself is what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
okay,
Isn't that
great. So
just
you
like
and
L.
I
Ron
can
Hubbard
get together,
too?
but
Yeah.
huh?
It's just like L. Ron Hubbard in Scientology to try and deprive women of orgasms.
Yeah. Yeah, basically.
That's on
Yeah.
brand.
Like I remember my in-laws were in the Sea Org, both of them, and she got pregnant. This was not that long ago. This was within the last 5 to 7 years. She got pregnant. Of course, they had to leave the Sea Org, and she had the baby. And then I remember, like, almost immediately she got pregnant again. So I'm thinking about the husband and her, and I'm like, wow, no one's gotten off in years.
Yeah.
There's been no interaction between these two in a long time. You think about those things in Scientology. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can't. You can't even take care of yourself. It's a real
No.
bummer.
No, definitely not. Can't be giving that baby engrams. And it's so ironic because you're like, okay, let me get this straight. So in Scientology, as a pregnant woman, you can't have sex, you can't have an orgasm while you're pregnant because it could harm the baby. You have to not have drugs because it could harm the baby. You should have a silent birth. But if you're a Sea Org member, oh, let's just end that. Let's end that pregnancy.
Yes,
Let's just be done with
let's.
it because
Yeah,
then
that's
you can
horrific.
stay in the Sea Org. And then let's have the child afterwards and completely ignore the child because they're big beings in little bodies.
Yeah,
So
let's
the
put them in a
hypocrisy,
nursery and you never see them. And
yeah. How do you explain that? How do you have all these, in the Sea Org, these rules, and we're in Scientology for having children, but let's treat them
but
like
once the
crap.
kid's born, yeah, let's treat them like crap. That's such a good point. That is such a good point. Once that child is born, they're really just they're kind of a nuisance.
Yeah. Yeah, they're fair game at that point. That's what it seems like.
It's true. It's true. Didn't he write a policy on like I don't care if it's a 3-year-old or an adult, basically, but like SPs are SPs and need to be treated as such? Like we
Yeah,
don't
look at
care,
Kelly
kid.
Copter. Kelly Copter was declared a suppressive person when she was 6 years old because of a needle reaction on the e-meter. It did what's called a rock slam,
Oh, the rock slam.
which means you have evil intentions. That is just crazy. And there's other reasons that would make the e-meter do that. Like you could have rings on or touching the cans together. It's just
Hmm.
to think that because of a needle reaction, parents are going to abandon their child.
And it
It's
really does
that.
happen.
Yeah, that's the part that gets missed that's so twisted, where
Man,
Scientology takes those normal desires and turns them into something that you're supposed to think is not normal, and then they give you what? No, this is normal. Ignoring your family, ignoring your child.
that's a missed opportunity, and I'm kind of mad about it. Instead of relatable Reese, it should have been rock slam Reese.
But it would
I'm
only
rock slamming.
communicate to Scientologists,
I
so
know. That's why I chose relatable Reese. I thought about like the Reese and the reactive mind or something, and I was like, no
Mhm.
one's gonna know what that means. But
Yeah.
still, rock slamming. That's
Rock
gonna be my
slam and
new thing.
Reese.
I forgot
Rock
about
slam
rock
and with
slams.
Reese. I'm gonna
We
grab.
laugh, but it's actually kind of sad. Like Kelly
Yeah,
Copter. That's horrible. It's really sad.
yeah.
It's there's so many things that are just if you really
Mhm.
identify and put it under a microscope, it's like that makes no sense.
No,
It's like
it
the
doesn't.
pregnancy that makes no sense.
Do you find too, this is something like I know, and I think because even my time before where I worked in radio and I did another podcast, I was used to a level of, having to recognize and maintain what my boundaries were. And, if somebody didn't like you, you'd get, this is back in the day when people sent mail. I know when I was writing for one of the local papers, I did a column and the vast majority of my feedback was positive, but once in a while I'd get a letter because I made some comment someone didn't like about the Titanic. That was a true story about that they thought I was being too lighthearted about it because I'd referenced it in a column that I had written. And you get more thick skin about it. But I think for me, because I've been thinking about this, like, how we handled hate in Scientology versus then now, and learning those tools about it's okay to have boundaries and different boundaries with different people means we don't actually have to address that. Like I didn't need to go call that person up and go, "Hey, here's what the deal is."
Yeah.
This is not somebody I'm going to go to for advice, so why am I going to accept or, put a lot of energy into the criticism? If then you have there's such thing as more constructive criticism or feedback like, "Hey, I like it when this. I love it when you add this segment to your live stream," or "I love it when you talk about
Mhm.
this topic," or "I hate it when you talk about this topic. I don't like this
Yeah.
topic." It's it's taking all of that as feedback, and I think anytime your job puts you in front of a bunch of people, that just opens up the door to having so many more opinions about you and what you're doing, and
Or
then you add to it coming from a background where you were never allowed to disagree and establish a boundary. We had to take it. That's why we had to do bull baiting and training routine so that we just can take and put up with the abuse.
Mhm.
And that can be hard to do, I think, going out and putting yourself in because not only are we, sharing about our experience in Scientology and continuing to share and expose those harmful practices in Scientology, it's so personal, and I
Very
think it's
personal.
yeah, and that's something that I know with a lot of creators, even outside of this genre, outside of the topic of Scientology, it's no different. So I've come to the realization
Mm.
that in Scientology, I thought, wow, I'm finally leaving Scientology. I'm going to get away from all this drama. And then you go out into
Newsflash.
the world, you work at a corporation or an office or with any other group of people, and you find out that there are still these dynamics of people where there are disagreements. And then how do you handle that? And
Mhm.
I got to the point where I realized it's like, wow, when I learned enough tools and started feeling more comfortable with who I am is I'm really okay if somebody has a different opinion of me than how I feel I am or how I see myself to be. If something that I say is taken either out of context or, twisted around to mean something else, it's not my original intention. It's like, well, I know it wasn't my intention. And, I'd be like, that's fine. It's something that Tony would bring up on the occasion where that would happen with like either when I was on the radio or doing the other podcasts and there'd be something kind of hateful that came up and I always got a kick out of it because I'm like, hey, I'm reaching enough people that I have
Yeah.
haters. And it's something we talk about because I think because he loved and cared about me, felt, kind of like he almost wanted to defend me in some way. And he would say, why are you so excited about this? And I said, because it's like at the first time in my life, I can choose not to respond to it. In Scientology, if somebody writes a report on me, I have to respond to it with an
Mhm.
ethics officer. If they interrogate me, I have to respond to it. I'm no longer in a cult. I don't actually need to respond to anything that I don't want to respond to. And that goes for anybody on or off YouTube. And I feel like that's something we all learn as we move through life is your people are your people. And if somebody doesn't like you or you have a disagreement and they don't want to, agree to disagree, that's okay. Then it's just not that's not then the season of friendship. Some people are friends for what's the saying, friends for a season, over a lifetime.
Yeah. That's something new I've heard, like, people come and go, like, for seasons of your life
Yeah,
or whatever. Yeah.
yeah,
It's so true. You make such a good point. Like, that's what I was saying before is, like, we have to handle and address everything. There is no, "Oh, you're late for this? Oh, it's alright. Go ahead. Go get on course." There is none of that. Everything is highlighted, and so, yeah, I mean, you're right, we don't have to address it, and we both have fairly new channels,
yeah,
and, um, I know there's some hate out there. I don't seek it out. But you're right, we don't have to address it, and I think it's better not to, because then you're giving the people a voice
yeah.
that they wish they had, they wish they had channels our size,
Mhm.
but they
And it's
don't,
always gonna
and
be that
so
way. It's because
yeah.
this is not unique to our community. This is across the boards on the internet in life. Turn on the news.
Mhm,
Go
yeah,
on any website having to do with the election, and you see behavior that's very similar in terms of, people just going at people in just a nasty way.
yeah,
Well, at the end of the day, like I always like to say, it's like you don't see take Beyonce, for example. Oh, Beyonce's in the Illuminati or whatever it is. She is not up in the comments saying, I am not in the Illuminati or anything like that.
yeah,
It's just
she didn't care.
why would she address that? Because it's so ridiculous. And I think it's a matter of learning those boundaries, whether you're in Scientology or not, is being okay with, being okay with saying no. And it doesn't need to be in a mean way. It could just be, actually, like I've had to do that. There was a couple months ago, somebody kept asking me questions about with people I was speaking to who were under the radar Scientologists. And the first time I was like, oh, just people that I'm, chatting with. And this person was more persistent about it. Well, who are you talking to that's, still in Scientology? And I said, that's actually inappropriate for you to ask me because they're under the radar for a reason. It's they trust me to not talk about this, to not share about this because it's their story to tell, number one. And secondly, it's really none of anybody's business unless they want them to make it that business. They're still working through the process of leaving
Mhm.
Scientology. And I think it's very few people who leave and do kind of like what you've done and me. When I left, I was out there. Went to Florida and did an interview with the Tampa Bay Times. I was doing I was doing those things and speaking out in the beginning, in large part because it's what I had to do to get Scientology to back off from my family because they still kept trying to take my daughter. And through that whole process and then being out in the real world and realizing, oh my gosh, it's not just that hate and that kind of just ridiculous level of, playing gotcha is not unique to Scientology. They put their own twist on it. But the
Yeah,
cool thing is
true.
getting to the point, like I said, where you realize that it's okay. What somebody else thinks of me is really none of my business, and it doesn't change how I feel about myself. And I think that's kind of the learning piece there that was so missing in our upbringing growing up is we were never allowed to have privacy. We weren't allowed to have private thoughts. We had to explain every little thing that we did, especially if it didn't align with what L. Ron Hubbard said.
Even as kids, like I read it off in the second dynamic book. There is a for 6-year-olds and up to 12-year-olds, I think there was a security checklist. And I read some of it on my channel and it was like, have you ever done something you felt guilty about? Have you done something to be evil? Like we
Yeah.
have been put under this magnifying glass for a long time. And you're right, we've had to address everything. And you're also right about it, the none of our business part. And people are always going to say things that are not only like hateful, but just totally off the wall and untrue.
Yeah.
And you're going to get probably more of that being in any kind of a public platform. I was thinking
Mhm.
about it today and I'm like, I go, some people love Tom Hanks because he's been married forever in Hollywood, and some people hate the guy. And, news anchors, and I mean, everybody has their favorites, and then they have people they hate, and maybe they hate them just because they hate their face. Who cares why? They just don't
Yeah.
like them. I can't stand her voice, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But, you're right. It's like we typically would have had to, one, train for that. We had to
Mhm.
train for that kind of thing. And so there's a mixed emotions there too, because I'm like, I've seen people really try to come on with the hate, and I'm like, "Whew, I trained for this." Like, you're not getting to me. It's not, we've been through thousands of hours of this. But at the same time, I've seen some really crazy things that I'm like, God, I would like to address that and say like how untrue that is. But you give it attention, you give it airtime, and then they're accomplishing what they wanted.
Yeah,
They want
exactly.
you to do that.
Exactly.
So,
And there's this
isn't that
whole
weird?
yeah, the majority of people who are gonna watch a channel or be friends with somebody in real life, whatever that situation is they're gonna do that, and it's not gonna be everybody's cup of tea. In fact, I'm gonna bring up some of these super chats because 'cause they're making a lot of sense. Blake Reed says, "You would think that if Scientology was so great and actually worked, Miscavige would be sending Sea Org members out to touch, assist, and postulate people's pain away to convince them instead of standing post all day and night." And that's a great point. Instead of
Yeah.
keeping all these Scientologists working feverishly away, working away to have them being out and more engaging with people, it's because it
Mhm.
doesn't really work.
Right. But
It's
he
a
makes a good point.
Yeah, he completely does. And Nancy, thank you so much for the super chat as well.
I love
Love,
her.
peace, and strength to you both. Your lives make a difference. You are loved.
That's so nice, Nancy. You're amazing.
That is super sweet, Nancy. Mock says, and thank you for being a member for 4 months. Having a father like yours sure didn't help because he took Scientology to an extreme level, even to Scientologists. Reese, so you never had a break. That is very true, Reese. Your dad,
Yeah.
based on what you've said about him, really sounds like one of those zealots in Scientology.
Yeah.
And I've often felt like in Scientology, you had your regular Scientologists, one's a little more dedicated. Then you had the zealots. And I think you're going to have that in any group or religion. I mean, you have it in even gaming. I mean, any group of people, some people are just so much more intense about it.
He was intense. Yeah, he was intense. Constantly quoting LRH. It was like just constant. Yeah, he was really intense about it. That's a good point.
Yeah, your dad had a very narrow field of vision. He had to look through
Mhm.
this L. Ron Hubbard lens and, remember that because I feel like this it's so funny because what I'm about to tell you, I couldn't say this way when we were in Scientology because I'd be evaluating for you. But I
Can't
feel
do that.
like a lot of that, what that those limiting thoughts that you have about yourself come from, your dad and being told that you're this and you're that by these
Oh,
Scientologists.
I'm sure.
Yeah, and just remember that, like, well, how's that working out for them?
I know, but for some reason, it's still so hard to undo those thoughts.
Mhm.
It's still so hard for me, and maybe when I am 10 or 15 years out, I will go, "Shish," I think for myself now, and I don't hear those thoughts anymore, but I still think so poorly of myself, and I'm hoping maybe just with time it'll go away.
Yeah, I think so. I feel like it's like a muscle. You gotta exercise it and build it up, and,
Yeah.
when you've undergone a lifetime of being told and I think people never in Scientology who might have experienced, an abusive upbringing or a long-term abusive relationship, you hear that over and over and over again and you start to believe it. Well, that could take some time to undo
Yes.
that and do the opposite. And that I think is a lot of what I think you too get from your channel and your connection with people in the live
Oh,
chat.
yeah.
Though that community, those friends reinforce that that message is just not true. I mean,
Yes. Oh, the channel helps so much, and therapy, but yeah, the channel, those people help me so much. Yeah.
yeah, like Bo Beats No Sheep here says, most recently dealing with abuse, divorce, and death. You are both amazing examples of true unbreakable strength and doing it all live, no less. Be proud, I
I
am.
love her.
Thank
That's
you.
really nice, Bo. That's true. She's right. I love her.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of, I don't know. There's something about I know, and you and I, we've both talked about this on our channels of how much having this outlet and this ability to be able to connect with people, how much of a difference it's made for us in our own healing and in moving forward. And it's such a great relationship because I can see and I hear from a lot of people who say, "Hey, I can relate to so much of your content," or "I
Mhm.
was able to think about this way or that way." Because again, it's I feel like on YouTube you're providing, education or entertainment, and if you can do both together, then you're hitting it out of the park. And I know that's how I like to learn is in a way that's fun and entertaining as well. It
Oh, yeah.
so important to just continuing to talk about it.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that a lot.
Asen says, I grew up with a kids show where you sang along to a song saying, "If you don't ask, I'll stay stupid. If you don't ask, I'll stay stupid," or something like that in Germany. Being uninformed is nothing bad. Refusing to learn is.
Yes, I agree with that so much.
Yeah, that's a lot of what I think we were talking about. Abraham, hey there. When you address it, you give it life. And he's talking about like negativity and hate. Some
Mhm.
things are better off ignored, especially when it has a negative intent. And I think there's a big difference between like I try to live by there's a quote I read once that was something along the lines of what I said earlier. If you wouldn't go to that person for advice, then why do you care what they think about you?
Right.
You got to kind of consider the source there with
Yes. Yeah, and just these people who are saying all these crazy things, like, are they successful in life? I mean,
yeah.
certainly not. I would not think so. They probably don't have good friendships, good relationships. How do they treat their families if they're attacking total strangers on YouTube?
Yeah.
That's another way to look at it for me. I'm like, why would I even be affected by this?
Yeah. How you define success too, right? There's like you may have been we see this situation often where you might have where somebody might be in a marriage that's not great or it's abusive, but feeling I mean, you've talked about this, feeling like you need to stay there or that you're trapped there. when you have the freedom and that independence to make your own decisions and create your own life, it's different. And sometimes I think people are scared by that, that when we change in those ways, and even as women, it's different. There just are times where we're held to a different standard. It's seen differently.
Absolutely.
And that's something too that, kind of adds to the equation of like figuring out, okay, like who are we and what is it that, that we want to do. Canoe,
Absolutely.
canoed. I think that's pronounced canoed. I'm not sure.
Canoed. Mhm.
Canoed. Appreciate both of you for many, many reasons. You both have incredible insight, beautiful hearts, and are so very soothing to listen to. Oh, I love that.
Aw.
Sending you both a heart full of love and light.
I
Appreciate
love Canoed. Thank you, Canoed. That's such a nice thing to say.
it truly is. We'll take it. And there's always wisdom, of course, coming from Blake Reed. Seeing you two
Never
connect
ending.
and just the amount of chemistry you both have actually brings tears to my eyes. Oh, Blake.
I love Blakey. I love him. Thank you, Blake.
That is just
So
so
sweet.
that is so sweet. And I think moving through all of this, the thing that like even that I hope for you and I hope for myself is as we continue to figure it out and we continue to grow, it's it's extra challenging, I think, when you come from a background from a cult or a high control group, because it was never safe to step out of line and disagree. And
Mhm.
now it's like we get to talk about what we don't agree with, but it doesn't mean everybody's going to disagree with us either. And that's okay. And that's the beauty of it. It is okay to not agree on all these things. And it's okay to not see them all the same way. And that's why we have these conversations and we talk about it to help each other and maybe people who are even watching have a different point of view, see something from a different point of view. It doesn't mean you need to maintain that point of view, but it might help you understand more. And if we can understand each other more, maybe we can have more compassion and more understanding when things do go wrong, because we're all going to do dumb, stupid things and we're all going to offend somebody at some point. But if we can have that grace for each other, which is something we never got to do in Scientology, if we can do things with that if can attitude, how much
Yeah.
better, would it be? And you can do all of it without ever addressing the hate.
That is such a good point. And again, it's just such a different viewpoint because it's something I'm not used to. It's so new to me, but it feels so good. It's such a freeing feeling
Yeah.
to even have our SPTV community, all of our fellow people. And I think this all the time, like we don't have to group think anymore. If Natalie doesn't agree with me, it's totally okay. And we
Yeah.
still love each other. Like she's not going to go write me up and race to the org and, make sure I have an ethics cycle once I arrive and, I'm in trouble and
Yeah.
it's totally okay. It's safe. As a matter of fact, it's more than okay. It's safe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's you again, I say this a lot. You can't put a price on that. Like it's
Yeah.
just it's amazing that kind of freedom, that feeling, and getting out of this weird culty situation I just got out of with the jester stuff. It's just a whole other, it just tops onto that. It's like I don't have a guy saying like, "Don't you dare ever talk about this. Don't you ever bring this up." You keep your mouth shut or something's going to happen to you. Like it's a whole other thing. Just out, it's similar to Scientology, but it's not in a lot of
Yeah.
ways.
But the behavior is still there.
Yeah, like just all those rules and
Mhm.
feeling isolated, super isolated. I had a channel for a long, long time. I mean, months, and I couldn't talk about that. And I said many times, like, I wish I could talk about, there's some things I wish I could talk about, but I can't.
Yeah.
It's just it's like being in a cage. I mean, it feels so good to finally just go, I'm in my own place, I'm in my own space. Nobody's telling me what to do. And I even, as scary as it is paying my own bills now, I'm like, oh my God, I hope I have enough for that. But
Mhm.
it's like, it feels so good to
Yeah.
also go, oh my God, I'm paying for myself. I'm
Yeah.
affording things for me and my son. I
Yeah.
bought all
And
of
you're
his school
and you're
supplies and it felt
creating
so
this.
good.
Yeah, you're creating this whole channel. You're building this whole community. That's what your job is. You're a content creator. That is a job. And being able to build that and expand that is absolutely amazing. Like any other business that you would have gone out and then start and done. It could have been maybe you were styling people or whatever it is. It's yours to create and to build. And it's very
Yes.
empowering, especially when you come from a place of not supporting yourself. When I was married before, there were about 15 years where I was a stay at home mom, had 3 kids at that point. And to go after my divorce from just being fully dependent on one person for
Mhm.
income to be able to fully support yourself was amazing for me. I
It's
was like,
huge.
"Whoa, like I get to decide."
Yes, it's huge. It really was. I felt so accomplished buying all the school supplies the other day. It
Mhm,
it felt like a big deal to me. I haven't done that in years, and I was like, "Wow, I just paid for his school supplies." Like,
mhm,
I'm in charge of that, it's not somebody else that's I mean, I've said this, whenever he would get upset with me, I would, say I'm gonna go get school supplies or groceries or whatever time of year it was, and as soon as I would go to pay with the Amex, he'd shut it off from
mhm.
afar, and I would come home embarrassed, and he'd go, "Well, maybe you'll learn next time not to talk to me like that, or maybe you won't talk like that again, or like,
Mhm.
that's your punishment. I hope you learn. Next time you'll get to pay for things if you act right." And
Yeah.
so that was such a shaming that was so embarrassing to me to go pay for things and not be able to. And so it just feels so good to go, yeah, there's nobody doing that to me. There's no
Mm-mm.
Scientology, there's no crazy ex, there's none of that. It feels really good.
Yeah, you get to decide, and I think I know the way I've learned to look at it too is to just trust each step of the way. Even with everything that happened with Tony and his illness, it's just I just knew whatever is gonna happen will be the best possible outcome for him. And when he was, you know, even before he was terminal, we talked about that, death is not the worst possible outcome. It's actually not. For him, there were worse outcomes than dying. And for him, living wasn't just breathing. I think it's that same idea of, what we want for ourselves and what we want our lives to look like because there's surviving and there's thriving. And
Yeah.
we have a choice. We get to make a choice about who we have in that circle, who you have in that circle of trust, who we open up to, who we don't, what our boundaries are. Like you were saying, as much as you'd want to get on the phone with everybody, you just don't have the time to do that because this is a full-time job and then some. Because there's so much that go into content creation beyond even just going and doing the videos. There's
Oh
so
my
much
god,
in the
there's so
package.
much.
It's
There's
so
so
much.
much more than just the 2 hours of Alive. Yeah, there's so
Yeah.
much more.
Absolutely. Love it says, thank you for that. You are both role models of strength, kindness, and resilience. Love and respect to both
Mhm.
of you.
I love it. Thank you, love it.
I just love that. Bella Note says, just love listening, watching, and learning from you both. We're walking each other home. It so does feel like that. And I think that's why we relate so much
I love that.
with people never in Scientology because they're going through these similar changes and transitions, especially in life. When you think about women who are my age, I'm in my 50s. And there's just so, you've got where your kids are growing up and you're an empty nester, or, maybe you've had a divorce or lost your partner, and life really changes. And we're all just figuring it out and trying to do the best that we can do. And I think if we can just try, because like I think this is what helps me not be as afraid to try things is I've gotten better at not beating myself up about it. I don't see it if I try something and it doesn't work. That's not a failure. That's how I learned. Okay, I tried that. It doesn't work. Now let's try this. Let's,
Right.
go at that angle. Who are our audience? What do people want to hear about? What do we want to share about? Because even with YouTube, if you can't be yourself on your channel, then what is the point? Because then you're just being somebody else for the sake
Yeah,
of what other people want to see.
and people see through that.
They do. Some of the wisest advice I got when I worked in radio, I had the, program director pull me into her office, both me and my co-host, and say, because we had some questions, and she said, "You're here to share your opinion. You have a platform because people want to hear your opinion or what you think about this. You're not here to just agree with each other. If you don't agree, that's okay." She paired us up. We were, some
I like
shows
that.
you get a show and you do it together, but other ones you put the host together. And we were paired up, and she said, "I paired you up because I knew you had enough in common, but I also knew that you had enough differences that you could bring a different point of view to the table on whatever the topic was that we'd be talking about." So we need these differences. We need to not agree on all of these things, but mostly we need to be able to do it in a way that we can be as kind as possible, even when we disagree, even if we don't like
Yes.
it. not
And
just
what's
hating the
wrong
same.
with disagreeing, by the way? Why
Yeah.
does it have to be so harsh? Like, I've just never understood that either. Like, I've never felt so like I wanna strangle someone because they don't agree with me.
Mhm.
Okay, fine. Like, again, I think that's part of our TR training. I'm like, "Meh, I don't care. I don't care that you think this and I think that.
Yeah.
I that doesn't make me dislike you. It's the hate that makes me dislike you. It's the like, when you enter into it, like, well, you're a grifter because you have a YouTube channel and you're making money and, manipulating people. Okay, well, that's not true, and that's too far. We're not disagreeing at this point.
Mhm.
You just are either jealous or you just don't like women or you don't like women making money or whatever it is. But it's like, now we're not disagreeing. Now you just want to be hateful. Disagreeing is perfectly fine.
Yep, completely. Because you can always just choose not to watch, not to subscribe, not to follow. That's the beauty of YouTube or any other platform is we get to choose. We get to choose who we like to listen to. We get to choose all of those things. If you don't like a particular one, you can either choose to hate watch it or you can move on and watch something
The
else that you
hate
relate
watch, I
to more.
don't get, though. I don't get the hate like, I've seen people who hate me, who watch me, and I'm like, that reminds me of saying, like, "Natalie, remember that time we ate there and we both got food poisoning and crapped ourselves for 3 days? Let's go eat there again. Why would you go back? Remember that time we got really sick? Yeah, let's do that again." I mean, what are you doing? If you hate us, don't watch. Because 'cause you're paying us, by the way. You're
Yeah.
giving us watch hours. Subscribers don't you don't make money on subscribers, you make money on watching. So,
Mhm. Yeah, you gotta create content that is engaging that people wanna watch, and if
yes.
they don't, and that is so completely okay, and it's a whole 'nother level of learning, and I feel like you're coming out of this, you've left Scientology so recently, and then you're doing it in such a public way, and I think there's so much value that that brings for other people who might maybe wanna try something like that or just step outside of their comfort zone, which you completely did. And of course, there's going to be bumps along the way, and it's all a learning experience,
Mhm.
Getting, and the more time you have, I think, out of Scientology and you're doing great with therapy and learning these things, it's like the better we get at it. It's not all, for everybody. And sometimes we got to even check ourselves. I found myself, and I told you this, like when we first did our first video before we even went on, I was like, I got to tell you something. Like, I was like totally into you, and then I wasn't.
Yes.
And then I was totally into you, and then
And who was mad? Nobody.
yeah, but I wasn't. It was like I had to ask myself, like, what's going on here? And I realized it was like I had gotten invested as a viewer. We hadn't really talked personally, and I
I
realized
remember
I
that,
was
yeah.
feeling overly protective of this woman that I saw coming out of a situation that was really tough, and then being worried about you going into another relationship. But that is
Yeah,
your choice to make. That's the beauty of it. And then when we talked
yeah,
and I was like, "Okay, well, maybe, like, I respect your choice, and I know that you love Tommy, and it doesn't matter what I think about it." I just there's just this part of me that wants how it is, like, when you see someone maybe that you don't know and you imagine, like, "I would love this for them," but that doesn't mean that that's what's best for them. That might just be, like, what
exactly.
I think exactly. But it doesn't then stop us from all the other 99, topics of things that we have commonality on. And I still think I
Yes.
look at it, yeah, and I watch you and Tommy, and even though there's a part of me like, I wanna make sure that Reese is just really gonna be able to do her own thing and all that, the other part goes, "Wow, look at her, like, opening up and, having this communication and this relationship and working through all of these things that happened and
A lot's
finding
happened.
love there."
Yeah, I love that, and I love that you worked through that by telling me.
Yeah.
That's what I love too. I actually have to say that about you, Natalie. I was thinking about it earlier, how much I admire you because of that. Like, I admire any male, female friend, whoever, coming directly and saying that. Like, even the messages that where we didn't speak face to face or on the phone, but we private messaged, like, in the past. I appreciate that, like, you came to me, and you
Yeah.
don't know how many people, I don't know about your life, but, like, I have people come to me all the time and go, so and so said this about you at this, and this person's saying this, and they may be a watcher, they may be a content creator, and I'm
Mhm.
kind of like, well, that doesn't, I mean, that's disappointing. I wish they would have come to me about it. I'm kind of sad to hear that they're going to you and talking about it to you about it. And people do that a lot. And I
Yeah.
was thinking about it. I'm like, at least when we have disagreements, you come to me or I come to you and go, "Hey, I don't agree with this, but I just want to give you a heads up," or whatever it is. It's like I gotta at least really respect that I didn't hear it from somebody else, because that kind of gets old too. Of being,
Yeah.
we're still new at this, but like you did this before. You said you were on the radio and stuff, but like people really talk behind your back, and you kind of learn who your real friends are and who they
Mhm.
aren't, and then you meet some people that you thought were friends and they're not, and it's disappointing.
Yeah.
And so I really respect that too. It's like we don't have to agree, but I love that you
Mhm.
come to me and go, "I don't know that I love this."
Yeah.
I can respect it. As long
Yeah.
as you're not hurting anybody, it's like, I
Yeah.
don't love your choice, but it is your choice.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it's very interesting, these relationships and getting to know people on and off YouTube
Yeah.
as well, and how that kind of changes the dynamic too. Because I'm glad we talked because like I said, I went through my phases. I went through my Reese phases as I call them, and all
I think
resolved.
everybody does.
Yeah, all resolved when I actually spoke to you and was able to, like, voice, like, "Hey, I wasn't exactly the biggest fan for a period there." And I felt like I had to communicate that because I didn't wanna be like, "Oh, it's just I agree 100%." But it's like I realized that
Yeah.
I was fangirling, and what I really needed to do was recognize that this is a real person. So I also can understand from the point of a viewer sometimes how these, what do they call them, parasocial relationships
Mhm.
occur, and I still don't totally understand what that is. I kind of feel like
I didn't either.
I have a vague
I did
idea.
hear it a little
It's like
bit.
I
Yeah.
think they, have somebody who they maybe follow on social media and just feel that they have maybe more of a relationship that's there than is there. But at the same time, I look at, there's so many people on my channel, and I know on your channel too, where that is a relationship. Like,
Oh, yeah.
there is back and forth.
Yeah.
What's happening with these people who you've, have more of a relationship or a friendship with. And I've met some amazing people through YouTube and have had that. So it's
Mhm.
not always all that way either. It's just really interesting. And I think at the end of the day, and I think this goes for anybody, whether they were in Scientology or not, if we just gotta, like, you gotta kinda just be okay with doing you, and that's why I'm always like, "Hey, you do you." I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm over here, I'm gonna be doing me. And then you get people
Yeah.
like, Tony's Hooter here. Love watching you 2,
Love
super
her.
thought-provoking conversation plus fun chemistry. Love you ladies.
Yeah, and see, Tony Suter's a good one. She and I text each other privately. She is a true friend. Like, I actually met her through YouTube, and I trust her and I consider her a friend. And then, you meet them too. And I was going to ask you about that. You met a lot of people, I'm sure, at the
Yeah.
celebration of life. And
Mhm.
that's very different too. When you actually get to hug these people and meet them,
Yeah,
you really develop a relationship. So
yeah,
then when you find out, like, and I don't know if you have or not, but I've learned now and been burned by some of them. And, it's just kind of disappointing. It's like, oh, I thought, I th- I feel like I'm the girl that had a crush or something, and the guy like really didn't like me, and I'm like, oh,
yeah,
we sat and ate lunch together. I thought you really liked me. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of disappointing too, but that's more few than the people who actually love you and you love them and get to hug. And
yeah,
it's just,
those are
it's
the
a
ones we have to
learning.
focus on.
And that goes back to the boundaries. It's like I
Mhm.
probably need to tighten up my boundaries a little bit and not be so open and willing to trust. But that's hard because I love these people.
Yeah, but I think that's the thing, is we can still love people and maintain, just what needs to be a boundary for ourselves. Because I don't think to have a boundary, you have to go, "This is my boundary." You just create it. You just make it.
Hmm.
We train people how to treat us. So,
Hmm.
like, for example, I've been so quick to answer my phone and get back to mainly my family for so long, that especially now, if I don't answer right away, like, they'll go and see if I'm doing a live, and that's why I'm not answering. And if not, we'll freak out a little bit because I've just been so on top of it. And I've had to let them know, hey, part of me moving through life right now is just, I don't want to be around my phone all the time. I don't have a landline. I'll get to it. But mostly I appreciate the care and that somebody's watching out. You know what I'm saying? Because it's
Absolutely.
like you were saying, living in the middle of the nowhere. If, you're abducted by aliens, how's somebody going to find out?
I don't know if they actually would ever find out. That would be a bummer for that to happen. But if I were at least murdered, somebody's eventually probably going to find that out. I hope they find like at least some traces of hair, blood, or something.
That's why you got to always scratch. You got to, like, get the evidence. If you're ever attacked, pull
That
hair.
got dark real fast. That took a
Yeah.
dark
Oh,
turn.
I'm all there. I'm like, "You gonna take me out? You're going with me."
I'm Hannibal Lectering it. I'm gonna be biting like crazy. I'm gonna
Oh,
be
yeah. Bite
full
like
on cannibal.
get all that DNA on you that you can. So
That's
even if
so
they end up
gross.
taking you out, they're going to jail.
That's a sentence you don't say very often. Get all the DNA on you that you possibly can.
Rocks in a Box says, "You both have created beautiful spaces on YouTube. Thanks."
That's nice.
Yeah, and thank you, Rocks in a Box. I love that.
I do too.
Totally. I always wanna say her name wrong, and you do it right. How do you pronounce that?
Oh, Jimena, Jimena.
Jimena,
I love
Jimena,
her. Yes.
Jimena, thank you.
Mhm.
Jimena must be in Mexico.
Yes.
Um, I've been trying to write something but not finding the words. Just thank you both for showing us that no matter what life hits you with, we can always thrive and grow and be a wonderful and loving, beautiful human being. Yeah,
She's full of wisdom. I love her.
that is very wise. Elena, thank you so much. Says, good point, Nat. When you what you guys do is a full-time job. I think it takes a lot to top it off with great, charismatic, loving people. Elena, thank you. I
That's
appreciate
nice.
that.
Thank you, Elena. She's right too. I mean, I'm feeling way less shameful about I used to feel bad about that. The person, one of them in particular who I thought was a friend, just I found someone sent me all these screenshots going, here's this private group, this person saying all this. And I got to see it with my own eyes. And they were like, Reese is a grifter and Reese is making all this money and taking people's super chats. And I'm like,
What? You're making money? Are you
yeah, I
gonna
just
do a
thought about it. I'm like,
full-time job and get paid for it?
yeah, and I thought, I don't see you complaining about the male content creators. You mad that like women are making money at this? And so I feel differently about that. I'm like, yes, this is a job. I hope to make this a real job where I make real money. And I
Yeah.
want to be proud of that.
Yep.
Other people do it. I
Yeah.
don't I don't see a problem with it. It's
Yeah,
it's honest
exactly.
work.
The create what do they call it? The creator economy is the largest growing economy on the planet right now. That content creators, consumption of online content is just continuing to explode. And some schools are even starting to offer some classes in that area.
Wow.
And it is no different than, back in the day when there was just television. I feel like what YouTube and social media allows us is to just have so many more voices at the table where it can level
Yeah.
the playing field a little bit more. You can have a
Mhm.
cell phone and have a YouTube channel and communicate and talk about the things that you
Yeah.
want to talk about. And if you do it full
You
time, you
know,
should be paid to do it.
You should be paid to do it. I've had a lot of people tell me, like, "I buy your monthly membership or I super chat you because I would rather watch you and give the money to you than, like, paying a monthly, Netflix membership or something." And I'm like, "That's so cool." And I think a lot of people have switched to just, like, YouTube instead
Yeah.
of which
Oh,
I think
yeah.
is really cool. And you're supporting the little guy. I think that's great. I think that's really cool. You're shopping local with your content creators.
Exactly. It
Yeah,
is
we
shopping
appreciate that.
local. I've
It's
been
Small Business Friday.
Yes.
Please.
I've been thinking about, speaking of memberships, it's the last I think the members on my channel have given me an incredible amount of grace where, I haven't been creating members only content because my life was completely falling apart. And as I continue to work through this, I'm going to start doing some members only content more around, I think, more personal things because I've been trying to and I'd appreciate any feedback from you guys in the live chat, or if you're catching this on the replay, or you want to email me, Natalie@lifeafteraCult.com. What is it that would add value to memberships for you? I've had some people tell me they love the kind of like the more personal content. And I'm thinking, because I love doing my morning recap of Scientology news. I love that. I love doing what we're doing now with collaborating and tackling certain topics in
Me too.
Scientology. Well, there's a whole nother aspect to it where I can see how it'd be fun to do some more behind the scenes things or get more personal. And I think that's what I'm going to start making members only content. You want to come with me to walk the dog and let's talk about, or, whatever that is. That's at least a thought I have. But everybody out there, give me some feedback on that. I would love to know what you think about that.
I don't know if you know that I do this, but so I have like either 4 or 5 memberships, I can't remember, but the top most expensive one, the top tier, which is 25 and one is 50 a month. I do a Zoom brunch. I call it a brunch with Reese Zoom call on Sundays once a month.
Yeah.
And we just do it for as long as we want. And I have to tell you, it is so much fun. It is so much fun. I have like There's probably 40 of them.
Wow.
And they show up and we just sit and we chat. And we did one a few weeks ago. It was 3 hours long. I mean, none of us wanted to leave. We were laughing and I was just I think I needed to open up. There were some things I felt like I needed to say. Like
Yeah.
that I said, I go, I would not normally say this and would
Mhm.
never say this on a live.
Yeah.
But I was just like, I gotta dump. I gotta talk. I just felt like I was in good company with my
Yeah.
friends. It
Yeah.
is so much fun.
I
It's just
like
so much
that.
fun.
That's a good
Yeah,
idea.
it's a
Yeah, because you can do
blast.
members only videos, but then like you said, for the other ones, have that where it can be more intimate and more
Yeah.
and kinda like we were talking about, it's a matter of a different boundary, right?
Mhm.
Different boundaries with different people. Because there's something about, I think, when if I look at it on a channel, like what value you get out of membership, it's that connection with the creator, with that person, and learning more about them. Like, I fangirl over multiple channels, and I'm like, "I get it. I get it now. I get why, like, I would want to do a meet and greet and meet those people." Even
Yes.
people from the moderators to people in the chat
Oh,
that I've
yeah.
met, I have fangirled, like, "Oh my god, you're so and so."
Oh, I feel the same way about the chat. People who don't even have channels. Like, I would love to there's certain people I'm like, "I feel so close to this person. I would love to meet them."
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely,
completely.
absolutely. But
Kathy
that
Ann
Zoom is fun. It's really fun because you can see their faces too. We're not just looking at ourselves
no,
talking. You're
that's
sitting there looking
right.
at everybody. Yeah, that's what makes the connection so deep. I'm like, I get to see people. I get
Yeah.
to see them.
So how do you do that? Do you then have their emails and you send them an email invite for the Zoom?
Yep. Yep. And
Ah,
I you have to pay for it because I think it's 15 bucks a month I pay for
yeah,
Zoom because
yeah,
it's you
I
have
already have
to
Zoom
have that
too.
many people, but
Mhm.
it is so worth it. There's no time limit. You can just,
Yeah,
it's so much fun because then it like I said, you're sitting there looking at them, and it's like that. It's like meeting in person. You're like, you see my face all the time. I don't ever get to see you.
yeah,
So we just sit there
yeah.
and chat. It was so much fun.
I wanna do that. I gotta
You
go look at my
should.
memberships and see. I don't even know if I have any top ones, but maybe I'll start with the general that will actually well, no, it'd have to be less. But yeah, yeah, like with the top
It's
tier,
so much
I love
fun,
that
and
idea.
people find it worth it, the ones that wanna do it because they're
Yeah,
like, "Yeah, I wanna pay 25 bucks a month to, 1, support you because I love you, but 2, we
yeah,
get to sit and chat face to face." It's
and
so
we get
much
to see
fun, yeah.
them. Oh, I
Yes,
would love
it's a
that.
blast.
I'm gonna need
Tommy,
to
I
do
think,
that.
wants to start doing it because I just keep I'm like, "We chatted for 3 hours." Like, my mom was like, "3 hours?" I was like, "I didn't even wanna leave." I mean, my butt hurt and I had to pee, but I was like, "This is so much fun to just go on because they know you
Yeah.
and you get to learn about them. It's fun, I promise.
That's so true. Kathy Ann says, "A genuine soul just shines, and your channels do too." Appreciate that so much. And Jimenez says, "You should be making money and a lot of money."
Yes. She's right, we should, there's no reason we shouldn't, and I hope we both do.
That's so
We
true.
deserve that.
Yep. Yep. I mean, I think I look at it this way. All of the years too that I spent working for free for Scientology and all of the money that 3 generations of my family gave to Scientology, if I have an opportunity to expose Scientology and make a living at it, I'm absolutely going to do that, and I have no shame in my game about it. I plan on making absolutely as it's unlimited, you're self-employed, it's what you put into it, and it is a
Mhm.
lot of hard work. It's
Yes.
creating the doing the videos, but there's so much behind the scenes to really do it and grow the channel and think about how we can provide a better experience for people that wanna join us in
Yes.
this
Yeah,
way.
and
That
we
is such
put a
a
lot into it. We work hard at it, Natalie, we do. I don't know about you, every time all day I wake up thinking about it, I'm in the shower, I'm like, I'm exfoliating, and I'm like, "What do I wanna talk about? What do I let me I who haven't I seen in a while? I haven't seen that person in a while." Like, I'm constantly thinking about it.
yeah,
To me, it's like writing a book. If I don't go on, it's because I have writer's block. I don't have anything I wanna talk about, I can't think of anything to say.
yeah.
Like, we really put a lot of thought and effort into it. We should be paid.
Yep, exactly. Alana says, "From the first, I knew you 2 would have got along and be able to talk this way, and that it would be healing for both of you. So glad I was right."
I love Alana. I love her. Yes, she's in my Zoom. She was in my Zoom call a few weeks ago.
Ooh,
She's so much fun.
cool.
A lot of these people were. It's so much fun.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
so fun to listen to. She's a badass. She's amazing. I learned a lot from her actually.
It sounds fun. Jenny says, you are just 2 of my favorite ladies." I love it.
Aw,
Oh,
that's
and Joe
kind.
Virus, who I know is a very good friend of yours. "I love that you both have your own flavor, and that's so great to keep the content variety appetizing to us all." Oh god, I'm hungry, and Cannibal
Cannibal
Reese
Reese.
isn't helping.
Lecter style. Yeah,
Cannibal Reese.
I love Joe.
Oh, that's
I
really
would too.
funny.
If I had to, I would go full on cannibal, even though I'm a vegetarian.
So Bobit says, my wish is Reese and Krim to shop at DG in full furs. What's DG?
Dolce and Gabbana?
Oh, in
I
full
don't know if that's
furs.
what she means. That's what came to my mind.
And then why not? Why not? Carol says you should do that, Natalie. You do good, both of you, and definitely should make money. Don't listen to these people. Oh yeah, no,
It's
we don't.
true. We're not.
Content
No.
creator is a job. When you're on YouTube and you have a channel, not everybody has it where that's their full time gig. For some, it's part time. For some, it's just a passion, and they're not growing it to the level of being able to make money. But when you're putting in the effort to make that happen, I completely think that people should be paid for what they do and for their time. It's no different than working in real estate. If I'm taking the time to, manage a contract from the time we get a house under contract and make sure everything is done that needs to be done to the end to get the close and represent my clients and negotiate, I'm going to be paid for that because it's my time. And
That's
it's
right.
it's
As
the
well
same
as
thing.
all the freaking emails. Like, I answer people's emails. I spend hours answering messages. Like, there's just a lot that goes into this, and I am really embarrassed. DG is Dollar General.
Dollar General.
Big difference. Sorry, my mind went to Dolce& and Gabbana. So sorry. I was thinking of, like, Tony and, like, how fashionable, and
Yeah,
sorry, guys. Sorry. Dollar General.
I was
That's
just
so
seeing
cool
that. Yeah,
too.
Dollar General.
What I didn't go to I'm not used to Dollar General. I wasn't thinking of it that way. Sorry.
We have the dollar
Nothing wrong
store.
with Dollar General.
We have
Huh?
both Dollar General, but mostly the one by me is the dollar store. I can
Oh,
spend
okay.
hours there. In fact, once every few months, I will, or every season, I should say, I'll go in and I will just walk every aisle and look at everything in the store. And it'll take me 3 hours. And I just I feel like at least once a season I'm doing that, and I come home with a whole bunch of stuff, most of what I don't need. But what I like a lot at the dollar store are things for my grandkids. So I
Oh,
keep a
yeah.
bin of toys and different things, so every time they
Smart.
come over, they get to go pick something from there, or I give them something.
That's cute.
So,
That's
yeah.
really cute. I could see that. I'm not used to the Dollar General yet. It's like the only place around me, and Tommy loves it. I had never been to one before,
Yeah.
so yeah. Sandy McKenna's in here. I wanna give her a shout out. She's the one who gave me the idea for the Zoom brunch. She was like, "You should
Oh,
do it for your upper tiered members." Yeah,
yeah.
she's great. She's the one who gave me that idea. That was not my idea. It was hers.
That is a fabulous idea, and I'm gonna steal
Mhm.
Sandy's
Yeah,
idea and do something
do
like
it.
that too. I think it would be a lot of fun. Miss Sunrise Dawn says, "Reese might have to drag Tommy out of the Dollar General."
He loves it. He loves Dollar General. I'm not sold on it yet. I'm not you know what, my favorite is, like, a Target. I loved Target when
Yeah,
I lived in Kansas City, but we have to drive far away to get there, so I'll get used to the I mean, it's great. Dollar General's great. They have everything, but
yeah, they
it's
do.
just
They
not
got
the
some great
same.
stuff. And then I feel too like it's things that I don't feel bad if it breaks, especially
Yeah,
if I'm doing like cups or glasses. And that's the thing when you have people coming over or the
yeah.
grandkids, like whatever it is, you sometimes go through things and then I'm not so concerned with, oh, I broke it. It's like, okay, with
I
a
spent
dollar.
a lot of money on that or yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I got it.
That's,
Yeah.
that's why,
That's a true psychological thing. You're like, "Oh, it was cheap. I got it at the dollar store.
yeah,
Who
that's
cares?"
why I
Yeah.
can't spend a lot of money on clothes because I feel like I'm always just like, I'm going to, I'm dropping food on myself and
That's all right.
all of that stuff. I need
Okay.
wash and wear. Sarah, thank you for being a member for 3 months. Says you both add such value. Time is precious and limited. So you should be paid. Appreciate you both and the value you give to us in the world. Thank you. And I know that
Love
I think
her.
both appreciate just how much, getting that feedback and the understanding and having people it helps me so much to see Scientology through the eyes of people who've never been in Scientology because it for me was the first time in many situations where I would share something that I just thought was like, whatever. And they're like, oh, that's wrong, right? That should have never
Exactly.
happened. And I'd be like, well, I don't know, I guess so. But when you really, it's, I feel like they help us understand that that wasn't okay because it doesn't, whatever happens to us in Scientology, no matter what, it's always our fault. If it was something bad and if it was something good, it's because of
Always
Scientology.
because of L. Ron Hubbard. Yeah. That is so true, and people point have my whole life have pointed that out. People, like, if I had a regular job, like, non-Scientologists would be like, "That's not normal," and I'd be like,
Yeah.
"Really?" Hmm. Like, it's just the way we were raised. It's like it's that is so
Yeah.
regular day,
But if nobody
and
ever points out that, hey, there's actually a better way to do it, or, you actually don't have to put up with that. And that's kind of the irony to me too, when that's how I think it's really important to consider the source, right? And the majority of people, the positivity that's there, they really get it and can relate to that situation. And there's not a lot of a judgment about it. There's a lot of learning about it because nobody's going to be harder on us than we are. I think with each individual, we're always harder on ourselves than anybody else can be. It's you
yeah,
can't
and
beat me up.
especially Scientologists because we had to take accountability for everything.
Oh yeah.
So,
Oh, there's
yeah,
bad weather and you're supposed to be out selling books. What did I do to pull that in?
I mean, it's the truth. You have to be responsible for your entire environment.
hmm
It's
Yeah.
bizarre.
You do. Malarkey, thank you for being a member for 5 months. Love you both.
Mhm.
Boundaries are healthy. They don't mean closing yourself off. They help keep balance and emotional, physical well-being. That is so true. And I think that's something that's important for both of us to hear that that is
It
true.
is.
Having healthy boundaries can result in healthy relationship. I've had to learn that too, having adult children. This is something you might want to start thinking about because Huxley's, how old is he now?
He'll be 15 in November. He's getting
As
there.
yeah, as they grow up and become adults, it's like suddenly they have boundaries.
Oh my god, I didn't even think of that. That's gonna be a
Yeah.
prob.
I remember the first time something happened to my daughter, and it was an emergency, and we were in the emergency room, and her boyfriend, who's now her husband of many years, was there, and it hit me that it's not me she wanted right there. It was him, and that I needed to take a step back and let him walk into that space of being the one to comfort her and tell her it's gonna be okay. That was
Ooh, I didn't even
really
think of that.
hard.
I'm gonna have a tough time with that.
Yeah, you gotta kind of wrap your head around it now. I mean, in that
Yeah, it's
moment, it was
true.
so
I need to
difficult
start
to
preparing
do.
myself.
Yeah, because all I wanted to do was be the one there holding her hand with my child. She's my child. And I realized, whoa, wait a minute though. Growing up and, them flying the nest and expanding their world, he's now her person. She has a person. So that role of caretaking so
You
much
have
in
to
that
take a
way.
step back.
Yeah, I'll always be her mom, but I have to take a step back and
It's a
let
different
her.
it's really a different role versus taking a
Yeah.
step back. You take a different role, really.
Mhm.
You're not taking there's not more distance. It's not taking a step back. It's just you take on a different role. You're right.
Yeah.
She left the nest, and so now you're not right there with your wing over her.
Yeah. And then
Mm,
on the flip side, it is so beautiful as a parent to know that your child, your adult child, has their person and they have somebody to walk through life with. That's something that's reassuring at the same time
that's true.
because you're like, oh, they have, I think we all want the people that we love to be happy and cared for. We can't be there all the time. But maybe that's what a partner is, right? That's your person. That's a person who's with you through
Yeah,
all of it.
and hopefully you have a good upbringing and parents that love you, and then you're right, you health in a healthy way, you separate and you go find your person that's a good stable person because you had a good stable upbringing.
Yeah, and if you don't, then, you create it. You're like I think that's part of it is working through all like, okay, what is it I want? What is it I need? I hear a lot but through when Tony was sick, hearing like, "Well, it's important that you practice self-care. It's important that you take care of yourself. What do you need?" I'm like, "I don't know, because now you're telling what do I need in this situation and what, like what in a Scientology situation,
Yeah,
there's just none of that. So it's this double down of
ever.
figuring it out.
There's
Yeah,
no comfort, there's no, "What do you need? What can we get for you?" There's none of
exactly.
that.
Yeah. Blake Reed says, "Except Dollar General, stop selling devil's food cookies."
Oh, Blakey.
I don't know what that is, but it sounds
I don't
amazing.
either. It sounds really good, though.
Yep. And Patty, thank you for that super chat there. That does sound amazing.
It does,
Um,
actually.
Tiff 420, thank you for being a member for a month. It says, "My mom said nobody prepares you for adult children. She was right." Yes. That is
Oh,
so,
makes such a
so
good point. Yeah,
mm,
I need to start thinking about that. I mean, honestly, he's gonna be 15, he's going into high school now, and I feel already like I need to take a step back a little bit,
yeah.
starting a new school, like, he started football practice this week, and I took him, and one of the kids in front of the coach said something kind of bullyish toward him, and I nearly came unglued. And then I realized, like, afterward, I talked to him about it. He's like, "Mom, it's okay. Like, they're just kids being kids." And he was real cool. And I was like, "Are they though? Like, I'm gonna go to jail over that." And
I'm gonna catch a
you know,
case.
yeah, but like, you got to take a step back and let them be, cool and fit
Mhm.
in and blend. And it's a good point. You make a very good point.
Yeah, I
Kind of
think
have to
it's similar.
relax my grip a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So Blake says, "Devil's Food cookies are the yummiest, chewiest chocolate-covered brownie cookie with a small marshmallow shell. It is heaven."
Dang, Blake, I need some of that. I need it now.
God, I love food porn. That is just so
It sounds
descriptions
really
of
good.
food, seeing the food. Sometimes I watch it on YouTube. I don't even cook, but I need to learn because I need to eat. And I can't live on breakfast burritos.
I do love a breakfast burrito, though.
Oh, God, I love a good burrito.
I do too. I'm such a burrito. We would do just fine, honestly. And I think you and I would do just fine.
Oh,
I
totally.
love a burrito.
I was surviving on just and okay, now they were breakfast burritos from Costco, but, it was, like, cage-free eggs and organic turkey, so it
They're
wasn't
the frozen one.
Yeah, the frozen ones.
I've never bought those
Yeah, they're pretty good, and then I would do these other ones that I would get from Costco that were fresh and not frozen, so I felt like that was still a good choice, and that's how,
because I've
like
seen those. Those are in the non-frozen aisle, but they're
Yes.
refrigerated.
Yeah, they're refrigerated.
Are those good?
Yeah. Yeah, I loved it, but it just my daughter came over and she's like, "You can't survive on burritos." I'm like, "I beg to differ, it's a full meal." It's not, and they're organic.
Yeah, exactly. I
She's
mean, it's
right.
cage-free eggs are organic. Come on,
Yeah,
you're being
but
silly.
now I've part of kinda, like, learning, realizing, like, actually that self-care, what I need is I need to give my body what it needs, and unfortunately, that means
Yeah,
vegetables. So, I ate a salad
nutrition for
today.
sure.
I ate a whole bowl of greens. I was so proud of myself.
Nice. That's great.
Yeah,
Honestly, I love a good salad, but it just takes time to make.
yeah, yeah, I
In
was at a
the air
restaurant.
fryer?
Yeah, that's how I made my burritos, in the air fryer. Yeah, Tony taught me that. No, I love it.
Interesting.
They're so good, and they're like this complete meal. I'm telling
I
you,
wanna try that.
so
I
good.
need to know more about this.
Oh,
Might
yeah,
need to send me a text, like a picture of what you get and all that.
yeah, and I Instacart it too, so it's like then you can just have it delivered. Well, maybe not where you are, though. You probably gotta go to Costco.
I have to go. Yeah, being
Mhm.
out in the middle of nowhere, but that's worth it. I love a burrito. I'm serious. I love burritos.
They're so good, they're so good.
It's so good.
Alright, well, we could go on for hours. We gotta
We
wrap
could.
it up.
We
I don't
have.
know what
We
my
did.
psychotic animal's going through here. He's just like I don't know if he has used the bathroom, I don't know what's
He
happening.
probably
Normally, he
mine
doesn't
do.
bother me during my live streams. I'm like, "Hey,
Yeah, no,
you want treats? You wanna continue to have all those toys? Mama needs to work."
it's so funny how you hit go and then they go nuts. Like,
Yes, it's like
yeah,
getting on the phone.
it's ridiculous. Mine have to go out too. I'm gonna go take them out. This was fun.
Yeah. No,
I
I
really appreciate you having me. I really enjoy talking to you. I just have to say that. I really enjoy. I've done stuff with Aaron, I've done stuff with Sterling, and of course I do stuff with Tommy, but to talk to a woman that was in Scientology makes a big difference for me. It just feels safe, and I feel like you really get it. So thank you.
I appreciate that. I like talking to you too, and I know that we will do this again. In fact, after we end the live, hang out for just a minute because I
Sure.
want to chat about an idea. But in the
Okay.
meantime, everybody else, thank you for being here. Hit that like button and subscribe if you have not already. Show those buttons a ton of aloha. And let's see, what is today? Friday. So I will be doing a recap tomorrow morning. I don't know the exact
Nice.
time yet. I'm working back to getting back on a schedule and getting back on the proper time zone too, because it's a 5-hour time difference from Hawaii to here.
Oh
So,
wow.
yep. So I'll be
Okay,
seeing
that's an adjustment.
everybody tomorrow in the morning. Get out there and have an amazing cult-free day.